Take it from me, just being ready will only get you so far. To get to the next level, you need to be the readiest. Because Ready shows up on game day. Readiest shows them how it's done. And being the readiest starts with a great night's sleep and a free hearty breakfast at Holiday Inn Express. So the next time you hit the road for a game, stay at Holiday Inn Express, a proud sponsor of SEC football. Holiday Inn Express, be the readiest.
Bring your own guts.
This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome you back to the program. We've only been away for 20 hours. Glad you're here on a cold, wintry day. Our first day back in studio on a Friday in nearly 4 months. We've usually been out on college campuses or elsewhere, but we're happy to be inside today because anywhere we would have gone in the South may have been pretty treacherous. In case you haven't heard, it's wintertime. And in the South, that is breaking news all across Dixie and parts of the South and even Texas. Winter has approached, and it's moving across the South at a very fast pace. Kyle Field getting snow? Are you kidding me? It's usually one of the warmest places we go to every year, but it's a winter wonderland at the home of the 12th man. Let's go to Tuscaloosa, the old tower. Look at that snow. Having lived in Alabama, when it snows, it's chaos. Get me to the grocery store and get some milk.
Milk and bread.
And bread. It never snows or rains in Baton Rouge, does it? At Tiger Stadium?
Wow.
Look at that. Who dat? That's real snow. Are you kidding me? Okay, enough of the Jim Cantori report. Army-Navy. Black Knights on the rise after that win last year. We'll talk all about it over the next couple hours. It is a special rivalry. Commander-in-Chief's trophy at stake. Navy leads. Navy has dominated. Army has had the better season. Oregon hires its man, Mario Cristobal. If that name sounds familiar, he has worked under Nick Saban for many, many years. Hasn't everyone worked under Nick Saban at some point in their lives? Anyway, he's the new Oregon coach, and we thought we would pass that along to you. Well, welcome to Friday on the program. We're going to have a good time. Randy's here on Friday.
First time.
So is G. Wojciechowski. Try spelling that if you're inebriated. Fred Siegel from Old Takes Exposed. A lot of people have said a lot of stupid things, and we're here to embarrass them today. Hunter Yuachek is the new athletic director at Arkansas. He'll join us later in the program, talk about the coaching hire and his move. He just came over this week from Houston. Retired Major General Vincent Boles on the Army-Navy game and principles of leadership. Look forward to speaking to him. And Mike Norvell, the coach at Memphis, he will be walking in Memphis this bowl season at the Liberty Bowl. Do they even get to go to? Do they go to a hotel when they're playing on their home field? I don't know. Lane Kiffin's doing the same thing at FAU. Welcome to Friday. Glad you're here. No coaching news other than Oregon. Jeremy Pruitt safely on the ground in Knoxville. We'll get snow reports, maybe snow pictures from you all day. Maybe we can do that, John. Remember that time we had everybody send in their snow pictures? Why not? It's Friday afternoon. Welcome to the program. We'll take phone calls at 855-242-7285. We went off the air last night showing you Jeremy Pruitt's press conference, and we began talking about that as well, and we'll get your reaction to that again here on the phone. Let's get going. Why not? Why waste time when we can start with Matt up next in Tennessee? Matt, what do you say?
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Good to be back with you. I had a real good conversation with you on Tuesday about what you thought the prospects were. We got Coach Pruitt, which is my wishes. I want to know what your assessment of the hire is right now. I think he made a great impression last time.
I agree. We watched the whole thing here, as you did, and listened, and many of you listening as well. And I thought Jeremy was spot on. He had a plan. He had a vision. The one thing that always concerns me about a coach's news conference is when they get up there and don't have any earthly idea what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
I mean, they say, "Hey, great to be here. Any questions?" No, I want to hear what you have to say. And it reminded me of Nick Saban's press conference in January of 2007. I mean, Saban laid it out. He said, "We're here to dominate. We're gonna make people hate playing Alabama," and that's exactly what Jeremy Pruitt said. He said it in a very folksy manner. I think he was very relatable to the Tennessee fan base, and I've heard gobs of positive conversation since then.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like he was as honest as he could be and very genuine. I thought it was great. It kind of make you want to run through a wall for him, so I can't imagine how it made the players feel. The one concern I had with Coach Pruitt early on when his name came up, Paul, was him coaching through the playoffs, because I feel like this class is very important, trying to get this recruiting class back into place. But after hearing him talk and seeing his commitment to those kids at Alabama, I think just these next few days on the trail, it's going to carry over to the players he's trying to recruit to Tennessee. And if they see that press conference, I think that's going to be a big impact on these kids. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, you never know. One game is doable. I think two become a challenge. I think Kirby Smart would admit that. Maybe he wouldn't, but I would for him. But that's what when you're hired to do a job, you want to finish it. It's always difficult to start the season, coaching players you recruited, get to the pinnacle of college football, and then take another job. It looks mercenary, and I give Jeremy credit for insisting, and I give Nick Saban credit for allowing him to do it. Thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it. Mark in Massachusetts. Mark, good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going, Paul? You're talking about snow right now. We've had this conversation before. The South doesn't know anything about snow. You guys slows down the whole region if you get a little
Mark,
dusting.
let me stop you there before you get too deep in this conversation. I've spent a lot of time. I spent every weekend this year in New England, so I'm a little more familiar with cold weather than I would have been previously. And what you don't understand about the snow in the South versus the snow in Boston is that the people in Boston are prepared for snow. It starts snowing, the snow plows go out, they move it out of the way, and people drive. And also people that drive in Boston and New York and Philadelphia, they know how to do it. You get somebody in Mississippi and Alabama driving, and they're like trying to compete on the NASCAR circuit. They have no earthly idea what they're doing. So you have a complete, and you also have people that are in a meltdown, in a panic, and that's what creates the issues. I mean, I grew up in the South, but where I grew up, we had a little more snow in Tennessee than we did in Alabama, and it was not a big deal. Yeah, I drove in snow all the time. Because we were prepared for it. We also didn't live on a mountain. Where I lived in Birmingham, I lived between two mountains. You can't drive in mountains on ice and snow unless you have the right equipment.
Paul, I think this weekend though was one of the greatest weekends in college football. I think
I had to. By the way, I had to walk to work one day right before I left Birmingham. It snowed. I'm at lunch and. It's typical meteorologist. It's not going to be a problem. It's going to be 38, 40 degrees. Shouldn't be an issue. And I'm looking outside and it's snowing and it's sticking. And I'm like going, what in the world am I doing? I use stronger language than that. Sitting at lunch. So I got in my car and I drove to work. Our radio station was up on a big hill. And I started going up that hill and guess what? I couldn't get up because I didn't have the. So I left my car at a gas station. And walked up walked up the hill because there's nobody sanding the streets. There's nobody. So that's the difference. That really a couple of years ago, Mark. Not to overwhelm you here with information, but Birmingham and Atlanta shut down because there were so many people on the interstate at the time. Everyone was trying to get home that you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So tell me about Boston, okay? For somebody that's not old enough to drive.
This Army-Navy game comes in really this dead period of college football where we're starting to see the light after the season ends and we get to the recruiting battles. And I think as the grandson of a Navy veteran, this is always something that means a lot to me. It's great seeing all the cadets and the sailors, in their uniforms out there rooting on Army and Navy, and it really.
No, I agree.
Really,
I totally agree with you. My dad was in the Army, and when I was a little kid, 5 or 10 years ago, I watched that game with him, and rooted for the Army because that's all I knew. I knew some people that served in the Navy, but it's a very important game. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Jerry is up next in Tuscaloosa. What do you say, Jerry?
I think you missed the one yesterday, Paul, why little Philly picked Pruitt.
Why's that?
The reason he picked him, he always likes to screw with Bama.
Oh, yeah. I forgot
and
that.
Mark, he's from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Is he a Crimson Tide fan?
I don't know what Mark. I'm not sure what team Mark pulls for.
I think he said he lived in Newton, Mass. Does he realize how close he lives to the original Crimson Tide?
I'm not sure Mark's figured that out yet, Jerry.
Okay. Well, there's a high school up there in Everett that was named the Crimson Tide in 1892.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and in 1984, Sports Illustrated wrote up their 1914 team as probably being the best high school team ever assembled. They won all their games that year, a total of 600 to nothing.
Well, I know Harvard is the Harvard Crimson.
Yeah, that's what they try to call themselves that. And Harvard went ballistic, so they said, okay, we'll call ourselves the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, when I did my graduate work at Harvard, I always wore a crimson tie, just to try to be one of the boys. Hey, anyway, exactly. We'll take a break. More to come. A lot of guests to come here on this Friday afternoon, 855-242-7285. We'll continue to update you on the blizzard of 2017 in the South. It is Finebaum Friday, and you are here, and we hope you'll stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Let's get some phone calls here. Rich, a week ago we were with Rich in Atlanta. Today we're talking to you by phone. Hello, Rich.
Jack, what are you doing? Are you worried? Do you not even get a snow day?
No snow. No, it is. It is snowing outside, isn't it, Randy? It is snowing outside.
Are you like the Cal Ripken of broadcasters? You just going like you can't miss a day?
Rich, I've seen it too many times. A guy like me with very little talent takes a day off. Next thing you know, you never see him again. Hey, Rich.
So you're the Wally Pipp of broadcasting.
No, I take a day off. The next thing you know, they're giving me a dinner.
Okay, so I don't know who's more nervous about you leaving, the SEC television network executives or me. So if you do leave, Jack, who's your replacement? Let's have some fun today. How about Lane Kiffin?
Oh, I think Lane would be great.
Yeah, he's going to be gone soon. He's going to hit that send button, and, that's going to be it for him.
Oh, yeah. One of these days, Lane is going to send the wrong tweet out.
Exactly. There's no question. Plus, you probably pay more than FAU.
I believe we do. At the very highest level, we do. I'm not at this level, I can assure you.
All right, who else could replace you? How about Dan Woken? You think that'd be?
I think Dan Woken would be great. I mean, just come on here and trash the SEC, trash college football, trash coaches.
Right.
Yeah. Give me a name of a guy.
Yeah, no, he would be. Like you said, the commissioner's office hates him. Every fan base hates him.
He's still unhappy Alabama got in. He said that was just a travesty.
Well, it's not fair for me to say every fan base hates him. Not every fan base knows who he is.
Yeah.
All right, how about your wife, Jack? You think your wife would be, wouldn't she be great?
She actually would just soon. No, she wants me in the job. She likes me here.
No, you don't think she'd be a great replacement for you? I do.
Listen, I love my wife, but I don't think she'd. I mean, she's funny, but she's not. She doesn't have the patience for people like I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think she would be great.
Yeah.
She's got a lot in common too, Jack, with the callers. She hates you too. No, just kidding.
That's pretty good. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, who else? Who else, Rich? Who else?
How about the callers? The caller, Larry from Shelby, definitely my choice.
What about Jim?
He's a freak. He's a sideshow. Well, you can't have him do this. Oh, no, well, you know what? With Jim, you could pair him up. You could pair him up with, like, I-Man and Squirrel. What do you think of that?
I think Squirrel has a chance to be a talk show host.
Yeah. No, seriously, I-Man and Squirrel and Jim would be great. It'd be like Cheech and Chong meets Ted Kaczynski.
I like that.
Larry from Shelby, I think, is the guy. When you say Jack would be... See, I wouldn't even have to change my
But Jack would not be good for the whole show.
No, he would be tremendous. He's the funniest guy in the world.
I mean, this fall we did 5 hours.
He's funnier than people realize.
I don't see Jack going 5 hours.
I think Bobby from Birmingham.
Yeah, what about Bobby from Birmingham for maybe the first hour?
Bobby'd be good. How about Ed? You know what Ed could do? Ed could be the call screener.
Yeah, Ed could be a call screener.
Ed would be great as a call screener. How about Lance? Do you think the FCC would let you get that one through?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty well done with Lance after some of the things he said this year.
Come on, man. Who else? Who else do you think? How about Larry from Missouri? He would be great.
He would be great.
He'd be great, wouldn't he?
You know, I tell you what, Rich,
he'd be like?
Rich, the more I've heard this list, the more secure I feel in this position.
No, Larry Missouri, man, he would be like, remember when we were kids, we would watch those Japanese monster movies, and they'd have, like, subtitles underneath? That's what you would have to do for Larry, so you can understand what he was saying. He'd actually be hilarious. He would be another top choice. Anybody else can replace him? How about Hazy?
Hey, no, Hazy's too negative for this show.
Hazy, he'd want to talk about the Eagles too much.
You know, the one guy that could replace me though, because he's got an attitude, he's snarky, doesn't like anyone, always taking shots at Bama. Mark Kubiak.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, he sounds like a talk show host, doesn't he?
Yeah. He'd be a good choice. I like Mark. I would think that. How about the Jabroni Jeff brothers in Chicago? What do you think of that? Jabroni Jeff and then Jeff in Columbus.
You just call the show the Jabronis. I can think of some places in the country it would go over well.
Yeah, I think those two would be excellent choices. Anyone else?
I think that's it.
Phyllis?
Nah, Phyllis doesn't have the... Nah.
She would be outstanding. Phyllis. Tammy? Charles?
I mean, we have all these people already. Rich, can I just stay?
Well, that's ultimately what we
I'm
want,
hoping,
Jack.
yeah.
I'm very worried. I'm very worried.
Yeah. You're what?
I'm very concerned that you're leaving.
Oh, okay. Well, that is the rumor. I know. I mean,
yeah, that I'm starting.
And by the way, I'm perpetuating. It would be. It's much easier to walk away if people aren't surprised. I mean, I put on the TV last week, and all my favorite morning show hosts were gone.
Such as I don't want.
Yeah, a couple of guys got fired last week.
Yeah. Okay. All right, man. But hey, seriously, I couldn't believe that you were working today. I would have thought for sure that you would have a day off today.
Actually, we're not working, Rich.
No.
Yeah, you're not.
No.
Are you day drinking? Why don't you do that? Why don't you, John and Mark, go out and day drink? That's always fun.
I do not drink during the day.
You don't drink during the day?
No.
Maybe you should start. Maybe you should go cruise around Charlotte. I mean, you've been there 5 years. You know how to get to the airport.
I can't believe.
I bet you can find you can find a good Mexican place to go to.
Honestly, I can't believe I've been at this place 5 years.
Yeah, I know. I hear you, bro.
I kind of feel like it's coming to an end here. I mean, I'd like to keep doing the show. I'm just not sure I'm going to do it here.
All right. Well, all right. I got you. All right, man. Have a good day, and let's have some fun today.
Why can't I do this?
Get rid of all the guests. And have some fun today. Let everybody call up
Monday, Rich.
and pick your replacement. All right.
Okay. Good deal. Aight.
Yeah, bro.
Aight. Aight. Daryl is next. So how come we didn't mention Daryl for a prospective host?
Well, I can tell you all the ones that he named, the callers, they would never work because it's a sports talk show and none of them know anything about sports.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point. So, we got the Army-Navy game, Hans, coming up this weekend.
Correct.
I'm glad the Army and the Navy and the Air Force can all have a little football team. You know, somebody has to guard the country. You know what I mean? Somebody has to protect the country while they're out there playing football. You do realize the Army teams aren't ready to be Marines yet, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Paul, tell me how cool it is this, okay? Kirby Smart is the first Georgia. He got Georgia into the playoff, the first team out of the SEC to make the college football playoff, not named Alabama.
Yeah.
And he won Coach of the Year, right?
He sure did, yeah.
Who's going to be the next defensive coordinator for Alabama? I hear Sylvester Pruitt is available.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, you don't. Okay, now let's get to the.
I think the person could be on the staff right now.
All right, now let's get to the meat of the subject. What I call about. Okay, you ain't going nowhere. So I don't even know why all that talk is even circulating. It's not going to happen. You would affect way too many lives. Okay, you built this ship. You ain't hell no. You ain't jumping off. No sir.
I appreciate you telling me what I can do and what I can't do.
You started the SEC network. You got too much involved in that. Okay, too much passion. You got this show that you built from the friggin' ground up. You ain't going nowhere. We got to just prop you up over in the corner, dead, up to the next to the jukebox. That's what we'll do. Because you're not going anywhere, Paul. That would affect many. You know what the state of Alabama would do? I mean, there's no telling. You know how many trees would die?
Well, but
there's a lot. We got a lot on the line. I just hope ESPN considers all this, okay? Because they need to give you the more money, okay? You're the number one sports show in the country by friggin' far. It ain't even up. It's not even up for discussion. They need to show you the money. You're not going anywhere. That's just the way it's going to be. See you, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah. That word gets thrown around a lot. That F word. Okay, we're going to take a break here. I think we need one. Off and running here on a Friday afternoon, maybe snowing where you are. When we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Gene Wojciechowski from Philadelphia. Gene, it's been too long. There's so many things I'd like to talk to you about, but I'll talk to you on camera here, and I'll call you later. I thought I could save the money on the long-distance call. But
sure, yeah, okay.
You've covered this game. You've been there so many times for game day, and I know you're the son of a military man. What's this mean to you, and what's it like?
Well, Paul, we've actually talked about this in the past. I think you asked me one time, what is my favorite event to cover? And I would say from just an overall, the Open Championship at St. Andrews is like a really cool event. But this game right here, and I know we've talked about the Iron Bowl 1,000 times, and it is an unbelievable football game. But Army-Navy, if you have a bucket and you have a list, you better include this game on it. It is a spectacle. It means so much to these guys. You know, this will be the last game they probably ever play in pads and helmet. And then they go on and they go serve our country. And it's just an amazing build-up to the game, the march on, the spectacle of it. I absolutely love it. You've got to come here and see it for yourself.
Gene, I mean, I have not ever seen it, but I've heard you say that, and I've seen so many of your pieces. But I want you to describe a little bit, because you're such a great writer. When you've gotten to know these young men, you understand what they go through. Sometimes it's hard to describe what they do before they get to football practice every day.
Well, just consider the hardest classes, like when you and I were picking classes in college, and the pages that we skipped, like there's no way, can't do it, don't even know what it means. Those are all the classes these guys are taking. And then in between all of that, and they get up at, 5:30 is Reveille, I think. They get up that early. They study till 11 at night before lights off. And in between, they squeeze in football. And then they play the game at a really high level. and they love the game. I mean, they know they're not going to go to the NFL. They know this is it for them, but it just means so much to them, and that translates to this game. That's what's so cool about it. And you go, I spent time at Army recently, everywhere, beat Navy. The cadets, they'll see a football player, a fellow cadet, walking around campus. The first thing they say to them is, beat Navy. I mean, it's everything to them. And on the flip side, they're saying that at Navy, beat Army. It's just such a cool thing. You can't, it's not replicated any place else in the country. It's not hatred, like the Iron Bowl has. It's respect, but it's just this love for the game and building toward this moment, this game tomorrow.
It means a lot to the brass, too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it means a lot to every soldier stationed overseas. I mean, you get bragging rights, and the Marines can give a hard time to the Air Force guys. And also, there's another factor involved in this game tomorrow, Paul. Army has not won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy since 1996. They've only won it 6 times outright since the trophy debuted in 1972. There are guys on this Army team who weren't born the last time Army owned that Commander-in-Chief's trophy. That's another component of this. It's a huge deal to these guys. We can't really relate to it, but they so much want that trophy back at West Point. Army coach Jeff Monken has already said, we're going to bring it, we're going to put it in the middle of the mess hall, and all the cadets are going to be able to see it and look at it and know it and say, hey, in my lifetime, I saw this at West Point.
Before you go, Gene, I want to get your thoughts on one more major college football story. We had the news conference here last night, Jeremy Pruitt being introduced after a tumultuous coaching search. I ask you not only because you cover college football, but you attended the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, like you, and I'm sure, there was a certain sense of embarrassment as an alum seeing how that whole process, if you can even call what happened a process, it was more like a dumpster fire. But at the end of the day, if you would have said, with that very first decision, we're going to hire Jeremy Pruitt at the very beginning of this process, you probably would have felt pretty good about it. Now, at the end of it, after all that happened, basically going through 2 athletic directors, national embarrassment, I think they came out of it pretty well, all things considered. And I think you can argue it is a really good hire, regardless of all the circumstances surrounding this situation.
Finally, on that subject, though, Gene, a lot of damage was suffered by the school. Is it permanent, or the fact that Pruitt is there now and did quite a good job at his press conference, it will move away?
Well, I think it will always be, if you did an obituary on this process and this hire, that would always be part of it. It'd be part of the lead paragraph. But if Penn State can recover from what it recovered from, I think Tennessee will be able to recover from a botched hiring search. I mean, this too shall pass. But there are a lot of lessons to be learned in this, not only from Tennessee, but any other athletic director, any other university president, seeing how this unfolded, they need to really pay attention to this, how this happened, what the mistakes were made, and how Tennessee eventually came to its senses and fixed it as best as it could.
Tomorrow morning, Gene, we'll have reports on College Game Day on ESPN. Gene, I know you'll enjoy this very, very much. Thanks so much. Great to talk to you again.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
It is. I just checked outside, Randy. There is sleet coming down. Sleet. So should we pack it in?
We need milk and bread bad.
I don't think we have any Wonder Bread at our house.
No.
Why do people get bread? I mean, when it snows in the South, people always want to go out and get. I mean, what are you going to do with bread? Well, I know, but I mean, how far can a loaf of bread go? I mean, you have to have something to put on the bread, don't you? Always wondered about that. Let's grab some more phone calls here. And Andy is in Alabama. Hello, Andy.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing well. Thank you very much.
Great show, Paul. I want to get your thoughts on the Tennessee coach, Pruitt. How long do you think it'll take him to turn that program around? And also, I'd like to know your pick on the Army-Navy game.
Well, I always go with Army because of my ties to the armies. Although I've said this before, my nephew is is an Annapolis graduate and an officer. So I'm always conflicted. But I go with my dad. My dad was in the Army, so I'm an Army man. Appreciate the call. Whatever your pick was, I'm not sure. Joe is up next. Joe, what's up?
Good afternoon, Paul. How are you?
Afternoon.
Well, I've got to go with Army tomorrow because my son's a Iraq, veteran, and so I got to go with Army. My dad was a Marine, so Marines ain't playing, but the Army is. So I got to go with Army, and I want to apologize to some of these fan groups bases that I let one person influence me because just as Jim from Tuscaloosa don't represent Alabama, Darryl don't represent Georgia. And my feelings are a little bit hurt because I wasn't mentioned in on that conversation earlier myself. I think I can be bipartisan for.
Well, I thought you already had your own show. That's why we didn't mention you.
Well, I can be bipartisan for at least 30 minutes.
Did you say bipartisan or bipolar?
Probably a little of both. But Paul, I don't know. Christmas holidays is coming.
By the way, Joe, to be the best caller in the Finebaum Show history, you probably need to be bipolar.
Well, it takes medication or alcohol. Some people take alcohol. I have to take my meds, so at least I've got an excuse there. But I do want to know your thoughts on, because I haven't heard anywhere about a possible replacement for Coach Pruitt at Alabama. And before I get off, I don't know. I got a lot of family things going, so I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
what's today's date? December 8th.
Yeah, it's December 8th, but I got a lot of shopping to do.
Here's my problem with December. I was in New York a year or two ago, not this week, but the next, like December 12th or 13th, and I told this guy, I said, well, will you be there tomorrow? He said, no, everybody's leaving town. He said, there's like a line of demarcation that people just bail out in December. Is that's the way it works down here? I mean, we're not going anywhere. We're here until Christmas. I just don't, but people, I don't know whether it's people that have vacations stored up, but after like about 2 weeks into December, it's over. No room at the inn. Let's continue with more phone calls and talk to Logan in Arkansas. What do you say, Logan?
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
We're doing great, thank you.
Of course, Chad Morris getting hired in Fayetteville is a big deal, but in his press conference, he said that he was going to hire the best defensive coordinator in college football. And
that pretty much means he's going to get Brent Venables, isn't it?
Well, that's what we're all thinking. That's what we're all hoping.
Well, they are close friends, as you probably know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And one of the best, I think, just took a job in Knoxville, Jeremy Pruitt.
He's definitely in the running.
But I just want to think of get your thoughts on, could Brent Venables actually wind up at Arkansas, and then if not
I don't know why I don't know why he would leave Clemson to go to Arkansas. I understand why Brent would leave somewhere to be a head coach, or maybe, but that to me doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I mean, well, the only thing really that has going for it, of course, him and Chad Morris are good friends, and Arkansas is in the SEC. But I mean, Arkansas.
He's already making one of the top assistant coaching salaries in the country at Clemson. He's at one of the 2 or 3 best programs in the country. I mean, sometimes you never know people leave jobs all the time for reasons which are often difficult to explain. Rick is next in Nevada. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Paul, and hello, fellas in the booth. And to John Hayes out there, thank you for throwing my name out there.
Yeah.
I have an opinion on this, though, Paul. As you know, I've talked to you. You let me ramble on a week and a half ago about my hero, Tommy Prothro. Well, I'm going to echo what he said a long time ago. You do not follow a legend. Anybody tries to sit and take the Paul Finebaum mic and his seat, the ratings will drop. Forget it. You're a legend, and that's final. And by the way, I'll drop a phone call to ESPN, which I do quite a bit, and just kind of put my opinion about the Paul Finebaum show. Really, it branched out, as you said, to someone like me who got it in Los Angeles and now in Reno. We're very fortunate because we don't have a talk show, and you are unbelievable going 5 hours a day at a crack. It is. Your durability is unbelievable. But most important is just your knowledge of athletics in general, and, of course, your background, journalism. I said over and over, I'm not shining your shoes. It's the truth. You're a super journalist, someone I just admire and respect. So,
well, thank you very much for that, Rick. It means a great deal.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you, Paul. Like you once said, I like to walk into a cafe and just sit down and rap with you just about anything, and just be enjoyable. Now, look at you and the crew. Have a great weekend. Enjoy that Army-Navy game. And
thank you.
I got to be like you, Paul. I'm sticking for the Army because of family, my father, my brother. So I hope they could get that Commander's Chief trophy there. You take care and have a great weekend.
You got it. Great stuff. I always appreciate it. Let's move along and talk to Donnie up next.
Hey, Paul.
What do you say, Donnie?
Thanks for taking my call. I wish you would tell Rich if he wants to make a personal call to do it after the show. I mean, he took 5 minutes up with something that wasn't even related to sports. And Darryl needs to learn how to spell. You don't spell Darryl the way he's got it. Paul, who was John Ward's partner in 1965?
I mean, I know Bill Anderson was later. Yeah. Was it Bill or was it somebody else?
It was Bill.
Yeah, Bill and John were my favorite team of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember Richmond Flowers?
Of course.
Okay, well, what position did he play?
He was a flanker back, wasn't he?
You're right. Boy, you pretty good.
By the way, I got to know Richmond. I mean, what an incredible story for those who don't know that part of Tennessee history. Man, coming up with flanker back under the gun.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Take it from me, just being ready will only get you so far. To get to the next level, you need to be the readiest, because ready shows up on game day. Readiest shows them how it's done. And being the readiest starts with a great night's sleep and a free hearty breakfast at Holiday Inn Express. So the next time you hit the road for a game, stay at Holiday Inn Express, a proud sponsor of SEC football. Holiday Inn Express, be the readiest. Well, let's grab some calls in the meantime and check in with CJ in Wisconsin. How are you, CJ?
Doing really good, Paul, and just want to thank you again for a great 2017.
Thank you.
Your listenership is not as strong up here, but I will tell you, we don't have snow, but we're doing good. But something that struck me yesterday watching Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt, and I was a minor league baseball player and spent a lot of time in the Tri-Cities of Tennessee and Chattanooga, so I've always kind of followed Tennessee. And what struck me was how impressive Coach Pruitt was, but the fact that Chancellor Davenport and Philip Fulmer worked together really brought back a memory of Donna Shalala and Pat Richter when they brought Barry Alvarez to Wisconsin. And I really am pulling for Tennessee because obviously the name brand is there, the facilities are there, the fan base is great, a little crazy, but I get that. And the other thing that I kind of, and you get on us a little bit up here in the Big Ten, I get it, and we didn't play very well Saturday night, and will Wisconsin ever get that close again? I don't know. But being in the Big Ten West will always give us that opportunity, don't you think?
Oh, I don't have any doubt, and I think they will get there again. I think Paul Chris is a very good coach. They had a chance to win that game.
Not just Paul Chris, but, yeah, we had the ball under 3 minutes, and we really didn't play that well. And we couldn't run the ball, and if anyone follows our program, when we can't run, we're not really – we're average at best.
Well, thank you very much. By the way, I need to correct something. I can't remember who said it, but we were talking about the Blue Angels. The Blue Angels are based in Pensacola. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul. I've been getting tweets about that.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I did see the Blue Angels fly in New
No,
Jersey, though, for what it's worth.
I've been down that area. They are famous from that area. There's a huge naval base in Pensacola, and that's where they emanate from.
Noted.
Anyways, appreciate all the support. We guys ready to roll? Okay. We got Fred Siegel here from Old Takes Exposed. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to let Fred explain. First of all, Fred, thank you for being with us. I unfortunately come at the wrath of your organization a couple of times, but it's all in fun, and we appreciate you being here. Before we get too deep into the weeds here, let's talk about what you guys do.
All right. Well, it's really not you guys. It's just me.
Okay. You guys is a Brooklyn phrase, okay?
Well, that's okay. Yeah, no. I could be a lot of guys doing a lot of things, but what I do on Twitter is essentially just take tweets and quotes and anything from the past and post it when those things turn out to be wrong or unprophetic or flat out maybe embarrassing for the person who said it. And people love it, surprisingly enough, Paul.
So how do you? I realize everybody is busy, and how do you collect these things? I mean, are you whenever you see something, do you just freeze it and hold on it for a rainy day?
No, that's a myth.
Okay.
People think I do that, but essentially I search for them at the time something happens. So let's say Coach Jim McElwain gets fired, I go back and look for all the tweets that people had at that time when he was hired in 2014. Telling how great of a coach he is. But also, now that there's a substantial amount of followers of the feed, everyone just sends me stuff when things happen. So I have like a whole army of people helping me.
Okay, Fred, we're gonna have a little fun here. We do that all the time, but you have collected a number of tweets, and we are going to share those tweets on our screen. As you may or may not know, we're both on radio and on television, so I'll read the tweets as we pop them up for the radio audience. But we thought, now that we're at the end of the college football season, we would. And by the way, I'm guilty. One of my tweets was focused a couple weeks ago. It was about Jim McElwain. So I mean, I'm not. Everyone gets hit pretty good on this. This is the first one. I'm going to read. This is Bo Mattingly, who is a talk show host in Arkansas. He had Danny Sheridan on the program. I did not know what any of these would be, so this is the first time I'm actually seeing this. Danny Sheridan said, I certainly think Arkansas will have a better next 5 years than Auburn. I think Bielema is a better coach than Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly enough, Sheridan was usually very pro-Auburn. I'm surprised he said that. I'm just kidding, Paul.
So who's the next one, Fred?
All right. Here's Greg McElroy right before the Georgia-Tennessee game. And this is from offhand. Someone was probably watching a show and said that Greg McElroy is picking Tennessee to pull the stunner and beat Georgia. I don't know if anyone was picking Tennessee at that time, but they're the ones who actually got stunned in that one.
Yeah,
41.
I was actually at that game, and there was nobody picking Tennessee that morning.
Yeah, well McElroy was not that high on Georgia at the beginning of the year, if I can recall.
Let's hit the tape. What do you got next?
Okay. Kirk Herbstreit, a local Des Moines, Iowa local sports director. His name is Andy Garman. He was skeptical about Iowa State's coach, Matt Campbell, who was having a lot of success, that he would leave Iowa State. And then Kirk Herbstreit replied that, I don't make up the rules, Andy, but let me assure you, enjoy this team and this coach in particular while you can, because he's gone.
Ooh. That's an old take exposed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an old take, and it was just exposed, Paul.
He is staying.
It was. I mean, he's staying, and respect to Kirk, he ate his words on that one. He tweeted something out. He was wrong.
By the way, is that the best thing to do when you're wrong about something? Just go ahead and quit.
Yes.
Don't fight the feeling.
Well, I don't want to give away any secrets here, but that is the best thing you could do. Yes, because if you argue about it, then everybody's going to go after you.
Yeah, I saw mine.
Regardless,
I saw one of mine being posted over and over. I just quit looking at Twitter.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I mean, I could barely find yours. That was the only one I could ever find. You can write like 97% of the time.
Yeah, but I felt really good about McElway.
Yeah, well, I went to University of Florida, and I'm an alum, a huge fan. So I read that at that time, and I was real excited. You made me real excited about him.
Yeah, well, I think John Hayes must have tweeted that one for me. Okay, what do we got next, Fred?
All right. Here's Colin Cowherd. Now, Cowherd, he's been dogging the SEC lately, but like 5-10 years ago, this guy was anti-Big Ten, everything. Now he loves the Big Ten, hates the SEC. And this was last year when Georgia lost to Vanderbilt in October. And Cowherd said this. He said, Belichick, Saban, Urban, and Pete Carroll make coordinators look really brilliant. You've been warned. Hashtag down goes Georgia. Essentially referring and insinuating that Kirby Smart was one of those guys.
You know, Cowherd's had a few of those, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he has a lot. He's featured a lot on my feed.
Yeah, I remember one on this show a couple of years ago when he said Gus Malzahn would own Nick Saban and win back-to-back national championships.
Yeah, that was – and you know who else has one of those? Rodney Gilmore has one of those. I posted that one before. But, yeah, Cowherd had that about Malzahn. He said a bunch of stuff about that.
Next cold take, Fred.
All right. Here's Jason McIntyre. He's with thebiglead.com and FS1. And everybody talks about giving someone the Heisman early October. It happened with Leonard Fournette 2 years ago. But
he's a good friend of mine.
But no one actually awards the Heisman to somebody. And Jason McIntyre took that next step. He said Saquon Barkley's become the first player in college football history to win the Heisman in October. It's done. Handed to him. Win or lose here. Now, I think that was after he had a big run against Michigan State. I think his entire season went downhill and downhill after this tweet. This was the peak point of his career.
Jason will bring you bad luck. He's brought it to me before by wishing me well on something. That's very funny.
Well, yeah. So he wasn't even invited.
A lot of people said that about Saquon, though.
Right. Well, there's a saying on Twitter that everyone uses: "Just give him the Heisman. Just give him the Heisman now." I mean, Fournette was that guy, and also Johnny Manziel, his second season in September, before Jameis started to pull away. People did that, but no one actually just hands him the award and awards it to him. I think this was like a next step. So this was why it made the feed.
Fred, the next old take happened or cold take happened right here on the Finebaum Show, where cold takes happen every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, here's Bill Platsky.
I remember this one.
Now, if you can recall, Bill Platsky wrote an article scathing Pete Carroll when he was hired at USC. I'll even post it after I get off here. Scathing. It was just like torched him. That was back in 2000. But here, he said on your show, I don't see it happening by any stretch of the imagination. He's got that show cause and baggage, and this is about hiring Chip Kelly to UCLA. And that's the last thing UCLA needs in the wake of this China incident. So, I mean, I don't know how many days later they hired Chip Kelly.
It was not long. I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, this was just like he scoffed at it. He's essentially telling anyone who's getting excited about it from UCLA, stop.
You wonder why the newspaper business is in such bad shape these days.
Yeah, well, Platsky, he does this all the time, though. He goes on around the horn and says all these things. He said the Dodgers were up 3-1. They give him the trophy. 2 years ago against the Cubs.
Hey, Fred, appreciate you tipping us off to this right here.
Big 12 champion, your favorite conference? Who do you like, brother?
I'm going Baylor.
Matt Rule?
Yeah. Whoa. Matt Rule comes in. Now, look, I make fun of Big 12 defense as much as anybody in the country. Matt Rule comes in and makes Baylor a much better defensive football team. Visited Baylor in the spring. He has that team flying around. Called them in the Cactus Bowl. When everyone thought they were ready to mail it in, they go out and they kick the crap out of Boise State. I think they're going to continue to build on that momentum. I'll take Baylor out of the Big 12.
That was Joey Galloway. Picked Baylor to win the Big 12 this year.
And how did Baylor turn out this year?
They went 1-11, Paul.
1-11.
Yeah, they got that one big win over Kansas, who's the only team in the Big 12 worse than them. That was completely outside the box. People love to make these predictions that are outside the box, but that was so far away from the box you can't even see the box. Baylor was program's a mess.
Yeah, listen, everyone in July and August makes idiotic statements.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, has anyone ever been that wrong?
I don't think so on a prediction. I don't think I've ever seen anyone this wrong on a prediction.
So from Big 12
just
to
like
1
completely
and 11.
I mean, they lost to Liberty, first game of the year, and I don't remember they lost the second game of the year, but it was someone similar, and both at home. So that was it. I mean, we knew that they weren't winning the Big 12 after that.
So we have
and
that's incredible. Okay, so Fred, we have one more, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, one more. Phil Steele. Mr. College Football Magazine, knows every statistic there is. It's like
oh my goodness!
Yeah. Well, here's Phil Steele. This was quoted in Saturday.South.com, and this is what they were reporting. Phil Steele was talking on a radio show, and he said that he's not only picking Florida to win the SEC East for the third consecutive season, he has selected the Gators as number one surprise national title contender heading into 2017. It's a surprise team. Now, in Phil's defense, this was before the suspensions. The 11 players were suspended.
Fred,
but
why let facts get in the way of a good story? Okay.
Yeah, I think we all can use our collective common sense to determine that Florida was not beating Georgia this year, and they're probably going to lose a lot of games anyway, even with the 11 players suspended.
That is so amazing.
He does have all the statistics. Like you see the magazine, it's like it's like a cheat sheet.
Do you give out an award at the end of the year to the coldest take?
I've thought about it this year. I may still do it, but I've never done it yet.
You're welcome. We're more than happy to have the award ceremony on this show.
I'm happy to do it, Paul.
Yeah,
I could do the best ones of the year. Now I'm gonna have to think about it. This is a process. I was asked to come on a couple of days ago. I have to. It's like a week-long process for me to study and evaluate, which is going to be the number one. I mean, I take this stuff seriously.
So just for a little background, how long have you been doing this?
About 2 years.
Okay, and what prompted you to hit this?
Well, I mean, I just use Twitter to get all my football information, especially college football, SEC, and you just see all these reporters on Twitter, and even on the news, what they do is they'll get something right, and they'll quote it, and they'll say, just like I said 5 days ago, I got this correct. Look at my pick. And then I remember that same person said about 10 things that were wrong. And just, my friends and I decided that this would be a good idea, and I started it. And it instantly took off. People love it, Paul. I don't know why.
No, what you just said is so interesting. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was hired, not to go deep into my career here, but I was hired to do the SEC Network and SEC Nation. But I got here a year before that started, so I traveled with College Game Day. And one day somebody said something about said I picked a certain team to win, to lose, and I picked them to win. And I answered on Twitter, which... hey, you're wrong. And then finally, Lee Fitting, who runs College Game Day, sent me a note employing this famous line that Lee Corso has used so many times. He said, when you win, say little, and when you lose, say less. And it's an adage that nobody on Twitter understands. That I don't really want to know after the game whether some guy from USA Today or Saturday Down South predicted it correctly. It really doesn't matter to me, but everyone feels like they have to say that, don't they?
Yeah, they like to show everybody they got something right because they feel as if, especially on Twitter, all these journalists and TV personalities are just all day long getting criticized by everyone on Twitter, telling them that they stink and they can't do their job and things like that. So I guess they want to show, you guys want to show everybody, yeah, I got this right. I'm smart. Look at me. So they like to do that. But they'll never show what they got wrong.
No.
That's why people ask me is there an account for people who get things right? I said that's the account of the person who got it right. They're going to show it to you and tell everybody.
You know, Fred, those who get it wrong are just as annoying. And I've been with colleagues of mine. They'll say, you know, I picked LSU to beat Alabama. I mean, enough. I don't care. Nobody really. I mean, outside of Lee Corso, I don't really care who else. I don't care who I pick. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, no, unless you get a substantial amount right. Now, people do care. Like, say you got 12 in a row.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's a feat.
No, I once
had
Fred, I used to pick games for a newspaper, and I had a college president came up to me after a game. I picked an upset, and he said, man, how'd you know? I'm like, how'd I know? It was a prediction, man. I mean, you're a college president. You're asking me that, but it is amazing. I can't thank you enough, Fred, for this segment. We have to do this again. I can't believe we waited till the end of the season to do this, but we are going to have much more fun with this in the future. It has just been a blast to connect with you, and thank you for helping us make this.
Paul, I was ecstatic to come on, and I appreciate it. Any time you want, I will come.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Get some more phone calls here. And Rob is in Georgia. Rob, welcome to the show. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. I'd just like to tell you thank you for talking about the Army-Navy game.
I
spent 21 years in the United States Navy, and it means a lot to everybody that's deployed. Remember, this game's the only game of football where when the plays and the players are done playing football, they're willing to lay their life on the line for this country.
You're absolutely right. Well, that is where I mean, I don't want you to violate any secrets, but what parts of the world did you see during your service?
Mostly Europe and Middle East, Kuwait, Iraq, that type of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like serious stuff there.
It was, but we all know what we're getting into when we sign up, and I've been retired for quite some time now, and I'd go back and do it all again.
You know, I hear that so often from the men and women who have served. That's such a remarkable attribute of what you folks do. I can't thank you enough for calling.
Oh, no problem. Thanks a lot, Paul. I enjoy your show.
Best wishes. So cool. Let's check in next with Ty in Chattanooga. Hello, Ty. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How you doing, Paul?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, I'm very excited and very enthused about Jeremy Pruitt hire. Let me ask you a question. Do you think he'll reinstate that kid, the Jennings kid?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, certainly he was suspended indefinitely. I don't know where that case is in terms of the disposition of it, but he was one great player, I'll say that.
Okay, I got one more thing for you, Paul. Tell Bobby I said thank you for giving us Jeremy Pruitt, and go Vols.
You got it. Thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Jimbo, one of my favorite names, is up next. How are you, Jimbo?
I'm good, Paul. How are you, sir?
Quite well, thank you.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I really enjoy the show. I have a couple of quick questions for you, and I'll get off here. The last week or so I've been a Vol fan my whole life, and it's just been embarrassing. I've had my head in the sand for about a week. I'm just curious, you may have already touched on this. I apologize if you have. your take on the Pruitt hire, and then how you think this is going to affect recruiting this year.
I think it was a very good hire, and I think Jeremy Pruitt, being one of the better recruiters in the country, will be able to salvage most of this class. Now, a lot of damage has been done, but
That's right.
I think he is good enough, and I'm willing to bet that's one reason Philip Fulmer hired him.
Yes, sir. I think all the Ball Nation is behind Philip Fulmer. At this point, I don't think he can do any wrong. I just hope we're heading in the right direction. We all thought Butch Jones was the man, and obviously he wasn't. So I just wanted to get your take on that, Paul.
Thank you very, very much. Welcome back to our program. So glad to have you on a cold, rainy, snowy, icy day. I realize some of you are watching in sunshine, but we're not. When it's snowing outside your window and you're in the South, you go, what?
Where'd that come from?
If you're in New England, you go, just another crummy winter day, even though it's not even officially winter yet.
No.
The meteorological winter is here, though. Jimmy is in a place that when you get 2 inches of snow, you go, hey, it's springtime. Jimmy is in Chicago.
No doubt. Hadn't had any yet, but it won't be long. But the Fred segment was just priceless. I mean, that definitely has to be a permanent part of the show during the college football
That was really
season.
funny, yeah.
Yeah, it really was. But I got to tell you, can you think of anybody in the national media that despises Alabama more than Dan Walken and Danny Cannell?
I'd have to get back to you on that, as we say, at the well, maybe Mark Kubiak.
Well, I got to tell you, of course, the famous one with Walken 2 years ago was the home loss against Ole Miss. The dynasty is over. Forget it. Never mind. 2 weeks later, that absolutely Georgia was going to beat them between the hedges, and Alabama rolled out to a 38-3 lead, and then Chubb scored on an 80-yard TD run against the backups. But then this year, when Vandy came out of the gate 3-0, just beat Kansas State, who was ranked, I guess, in mid-teens. 3-0. The line was 19 points, and Walken goes, I'm just astounded by this 19-point spread. I don't know how Alabama's going to score 19. I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on. But yeah, that is just a great feature. But I got to tell you, a couple of days ago, we were talking about Fulmer and some of the coaches that, in my mind, would not have considered Tennessee until he took over, because there was just such chaos. And I think he just represented this air of stability and the fact that he was a pure football guy. And it certainly got the attention, of guys like Mel Tucker, who had so much NFL experience. Of course, Kevin Steele, who played there, and then with Jeremy Pruitt. And I tell you, if you're a Tennessee fan, considering where you were a week ago, you couldn't have dreamed, I don't think, in being in a better spot than you are right now, considering what could have happened.
Yeah, well said. No, it's pretty hard to believe. I mean, it was a desperado last Friday.
And and now the Saban tree just grows with Cristobal getting the job at Oregon, and I really thought that might have been a place where Leach might have ended up. That freewheeling type of offense. I think it would have fit in perfectly for
Jimmy,
them.
as much as everyone likes Mike Leach, I don't want to say he's unhireable, but
yeah,
right now John Curry is the only person I know willing to take a chance on Mike Leach. He got
Yeah,
fired for it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. He don't rule him out, because the reason Bill Mass left Washington State to take the Nebraska job was he did not have a great relationship with the new Washington State president, and the Washington State president just happened to have hired Curry at Kansas State.
Wow.
And they have not filled that Washington State AD
I think
spot.
listen, I think Curry would be fine. He just wasn't fine in Knoxville.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a bureaucratic AD from Central Casting, and it just didn't work where he was.
Yeah, I stumbled into that on a Seattle Times link, and I was watching the games last week, and I noticed that Oregon State had filled their position. I didn't realize it, and it was Jonathan Smith, who was the Washington offensive coordinator who came over with Peterson, and he played on those Oregon State teams in the late 90s, the one that blew out Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl and all that. And they talked about the fact that Curry had that late-night meeting on Thursday night the day before he got fired with Leach. And the Seattle Times kind of mentioned all of this and said it might have been a situation, since the meeting was, you could correct me, but I think that meeting took place without Tennessee administrators knowing, or at least how far along.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, that's what the word is. And again, I don't know if you're out there freewheeling as the athletic director. I would assume that you probably have the purview or the prerogative to go out and talk to people. And yeah, certainly you got to be in contact with your bosses. But I think the chancellor basically said, "Go find a coach," and he was about to find a coach. Let's get some more calls going. Daniel is in Tucson. Good afternoon, Daniel.
Hello, Mr. Finebaum. Happy Friday to you, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much.
Just playing off what Jim and all them were saying about your show, I'm originally from Nashville, and went from listening to Clay Travis in the day to moving to Hoover, Alabama, and picking up your show, which was fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Then moving out west, to where football just does not seem to be as passionate in the South, as pretty much everyone would agree, I would think. The show on ESPN has been a excellent way for you to resonate that passion to the people in the West, I believe. I am pretty much work in a hospital, talk to a lot of people, say, hey, you need to listen to this. First week I moved here, I remember going down the main road here in Tucson, and Arizona had a football game. And I had no clue. That would just never happen in the South, driving down the main road of any of the SEC schools and actually being able to make it to somewhere in 20 minutes. But just overall, just wanted to call and tell you thank you for the show. Keep up the good work. And thanks again for getting your message out here to the West Coast. Thanks again, Paul.
Daniel, thank you very much. And listen, we feel the same way. People. A lot of people ask me, why don't you get more upset by the haters and the critics? And I just don't, because I know what we do here. I'm not going to let one person or two people or even a lot of people change how we approach things. I do listen to people. Yeah, I'm always listening to suggestions, but when the same person calls in with the same take for 10 years or 11 years, you just have to start wondering, is that the person that has the problem as opposed to what we're doing? Let's get some more calls here. Bobby is up next. Bobby, go right ahead.
How you doing today, buddy?
We are doing great. Thank you, Bobby.
You know you got a good coach, don't you?
I feel good about it.
Right. You can tell. I told you yesterday, Jeremy Pruitt is about winning, man. He knows how to win. Well, wait a minute, Paul. Let me pull out my stopwatch here because I got to monitor my time because they say me and Squirrel and man, get all your time. And old Ty, I heard old Ty from Tennessee there. Ty, you welcome, man. It's Christmas time. Because I know you got tired of Bush Jones, and I did too. Paul, Big Ten John over there, tell him when he gets through with that Navy prop, that cap, tell him to send me that cap. I like that cap. Is he listening?
You like the Navy one, Bobby? You're a Navy man?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great cap.
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps. Marine
That's
Corps
right.
come on the Department of the Navy.
Sure does.
So you're going to be watching the game tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah. Cat got to tell you.
Classic.
Hey, Paul, excuse me, they are worried about who Alabama going to get for a defensive coordinator. There, if you're listening, whoever he is, in 2-3 years, he'll be a head coach. You can bet that. Paul, I ain't going to take up much of your time. I'm going to say this, then I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
In Alabama, we good for two things. That's winning national championships and turning out head coaches. I'll holler at you later, buddy.
Thank you, Bobby. Good stuff. Appreciate it. Josh is up next. What do you say, Josh?
Hey, Paul. How you?
Oh, very well. Thank you.
You know, I've come to I want to ask you a question about Jeremy Pruitt like everybody else, but I've come to a realization after being on this call today, and I always said the thing that separates Paul Finebaum from other sports personalities is that he genuinely cares for his listeners. You can tell when you call in and you get a platform and you can talk. On other shows, you get about 6 seconds and they cut you off. And I've always wondered, I said, why does Paul Finebaum care so much about his listeners? What makes him different? And I realized it. After waiting on hold for an hour and 4 minutes to talk to you, I realized you know that we are loyal. We want to talk to you, and that's why we wait, and you care about us, and I appreciate that.
That means so much to me. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Listen, about Jeremy Pruitt, I have a question for you real quick. You know a lot about college football. You know a lot about the sport. And how you look at Nick Saban, he wins four championships, and was it 4 championships in 5-6 years?
Yes.
How much does losing coaches every bowl season affect this program in a negative way?
You know, I asked Saban a year ago. We were sitting up in Connecticut, and I asked him about losing Kirby Smart. I thought that was the most significant departure that he had. And he said, you know what, we just don't let anything like that affect us. And he was right. You know, he lost. What I meant was he lost Kirby and Mel Tucker. That was a pretty big blow. But you know, he brought in Jeremy Pruitt, who had already been on that staff, and there are people on that staff that can move up, or he'll bring someone else in, and that's what happens with experience. He has such a long list of so many tentacles through so many coaches. He's never going to be caught off guard, though.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's a great defensive mind, and he brings these guys on. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it hurts more to lose a piece from the offensive side of the ball from the defense because he's the de facto DC. What do you think about that?
I think you're right about that. Take it from me, just being ready will only get you so far. To get to the next level, you need to be the readiest, because Ready shows up on game day. Readiest shows them how it's done. And being the readiest starts with a great night's sleep and a free hearty breakfast at Holiday Inn Express. So the next time you hit the road for a game, stay at Holiday Inn Express, a proud sponsor of SEC football. Holiday Inn Express, be the readiest. Welcome you back. I hope you were with us yesterday morning when we had live coverage of the introduction of Chad Morris. And during that, we saw Hunter Yuachek, who was named the day before as the new Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics at the University of Arkansas. He comes there from the University of Houston. He has also served as Athletic Director at Coastal Carolina and served at many other schools, including Virginia, Western Carolina, Wake Forest, and Vanderbilt. And he joins us now from Fayetteville. Hunter, thanks for being here. Congratulations. I'm sure this week has been quite memorable for you.
It has been a very special week for me and my family, and hopefully the Arkansas Razorback family. I've missed a lot of the discussion this week. Has it ended between Alabama and Ohio State? Is the debate over yet?
It's over, and Alabama prevailed, of which we're not supposed to take sides, but we will. We're pretty happy to hear that.
I'm sure your constituents in the state of Alabama are very pleased this week.
They have had a good run, and a lot of happy folks in the SEC with 2 teams, and I know that's someplace ultimately you'd like to see your program in. But before we get to all of that, I am interested in your discussions. It's rare that an athletic director is hired in the middle of a coaching search. So we always ask coaches, when did you first hear about this possibility? What about an athletic director?
Well, this possibility really came to light very quickly. Roughly a little over 10 days ago, Chancellor Steinmetz reached out to me, really just out of the blue. I picked up the phone. It was a Fayetteville, Arkansas call. We had a great discussion for a half hour, 45 minutes. Then we met in Houston prior to our basketball game versus Arkansas on Saturday, and then he called on Monday prior to the board meeting and asked if I wanted to be the candidate that he moved forward to the board for approval. And, of course, I said absolutely.
And at that point, Hunter, the coaching search was running contemporaneously to yours. You get the job, and I'm sure you're updated on everything else that is going on. What happened next?
Well, once I signed my letter of offer, I got on the phone with Julie Kronberg's people here at the university, and we talked about where the search was and the people that her and her consulting group had interviewed, and Chad Morris was at the top of her list. And of course, I'm familiar with Coach Morris from my time in the American Athletic Conference, and remember back in 2014 when at the University of Houston we played SMU the day after Thanksgiving to conclude SMU's 0-12 season. Chad Morris took over right after that, and he slowly built that program to a 7-5 team that's going to a bowl game. And he took a team that was really at the bottom of the NCAA ranks, and he's moved them slowly up, especially on the offensive side of the ball, being ranked in the top 10 in total offense this year.
Let's move it forward to yesterday. Certainly you introduced him, and you sat there listening to him. He made a very positive impression. I was watching through a television screen, but what was it like in that room?
There was a great deal of energy, a great deal of enthusiasm, and I think a great deal of relief from the fan base here at the University of Arkansas and across this great state. Chad Morris is a phenomenal person, first and foremost. He's a phenomenal football coach. I think he is the right person at the right time in the history of our football program here at the University of Arkansas to really take this program where it needs to be and to compete in what is the toughest conference and really the toughest division right now, Paul, in the SEC West.
As someone who has a lot of experience as an athletic director and has worked in many athletic departments, I am interested in your vision. I know you laid some of it out the other day in your news conference. I don't know how many of our maybe some of our listeners in Arkansas or viewers may have seen it, but for those who didn't, most interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, my vision, I presented Chancellor Steinmetz with the 100-day plan, and one of the things he told me was very, very important, that the athletic director at the University of Arkansas needed to get across the state, out and about, and meet the various constituents from Fayetteville down to Little Rock, over to Pine Bluff, and really to be someone that unites his state and brings the Razorback Nation back together again. And obviously that engine starts with football, and your football program unites your fan base, your alumni base throughout your state. And the University of Arkansas is the kind of the flagship school in Arkansas. There's not other professional sports. There's not another major college per se, and there's a lot of gravitation obviously towards what the football program at the University of Arkansas is doing, and we've got to get the football program right, and that started yesterday with the hiring of Chad Morris.
Talking to Hunter Yuachek, the new Vice Chancellor and Athletic Director at Arkansas, on that front, what is your expectation? Because this always gets confused. Some fan bases get confused about where their program should go and who they are. What is your impression? I realize you've only been there a couple of days of where this program should be.
Well, one of the things that I really liked when Coach Morris and I talked on Tuesday night for a little bit, he compared where Arkansas is today to where Clemson was 7 or 8 years ago when he arrived on Dabo Swinney's staff, and the level of talent that's here and the opportunity that exists within this state and within this region to recruit some of the best talent and bring them here. And so, Coach Morris, my expectation is we build a program that this community and this state is very, very proud to come out and support. But we've got to win football games, Paul. That's the bottom line. That's what Coach Morris is going to be judged on. That's what I'm going to be judged on. And so that's got to happen. And so we've got to continue to show growth and improvement as we head into 2018 and 2019. And I'm not going to put a win-loss record on a successful season, but we'll know the successful season by the growth and the competitive nature of Arkansas football moving forward.
And you already know this because you're involved in intercollegiate athletics, but I've always thought, and I'm really anxious to get your thoughts on this, is that the Arkansas fan base, even when things aren't great, are so loyal. That is such a unified state, unlike other states where there's another SEC school to compete. So I don't think it is as big a challenge, but how do you get everyone, Hunter, to coalesce around this program and make sure everybody's going to the same heartbeat?
Well, I think the big thing, Paul, is that everybody across this state that's so proud to support the University of Arkansas, they got to feel a part of our program. And being a part of a program means that they can touch and feel your program and touch and feel your athletic director, your head football coach, your head basketball coach, your baseball coach. And we've got to do a great job of getting out and about around this state and really having one message that we're pushing forward as an athletic program that really unites this state across the board. You talked about the passionate fan base. I think I started Twitter, my own Twitter account, 7 or 8 years ago when I became the athletic director at the Coastal Carolina University. I think Monday afternoon before I got the job, I had a little over 5,000 followers. I think that number my son told me earlier today is over 20,000 now, and that's just in 72 hours of being the athletic director here at the University of Arkansas. That'll tell you a little bit about the passion of this fan base.
Leave it to a young person to keep track of how many Twitter followers Dad has.
That's exactly right.
I am interested in your family because I saw them. It has to be pretty exciting for them. I realize you had a really good job in Houston. That was an incredibly successful program, but this is a bigger program, one that resonates all over the country.
It is. My family's very excited about the move. I wasn't able to bring my family to the introductory press conference. My oldest son, Ryan, is a senior tight end at Marshall University. He's in the middle of final exams in his bowl game out in New Mexico next week. My middle son, Jake, is finishing up his senior year at Friendswood High School and hoping for an opportunity to continue his career in football at the next level. And then I've got a 7th grader, Brooks. He's 13, and he's just flew up today, him and my wife, and we're going to spend some time getting out and about here in Fayetteville in this community, getting to know some of the constituents this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know it already. That is a beautiful part of the world in northwest Arkansas, and I know that there is a lot to do. It comes at a busy time with Christmas. You got basketball with Coach Anderson. I know there's a big game this weekend, but we look forward to getting to know you. And Hunter, thanks so much. I know it's an incredibly busy time for making time for us this afternoon.
Paul, it's a pleasure. Anytime you want to have me on to talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks, I will be available.
Well, we will do that. We appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
One person that I could never say goodbye to is Larry in Shelby. Good afternoon, Larry.
Woo, brother, snow. It's crap Big Ten John has to deal with. Yankee Town, brother. Man, I ain't believing this. We got like 4 inches up here.
4 inches?
Yes, sir. I ain't even got TV.
Reminds me of that old weatherman joke from Boston, but I'll keep it to myself.
Yeah, I imagine you probably need to. That's crap you talking and leaving.
So can people drive around right now in Birmingham or not?
Idiots. They don't know how to drive. I see 2 or 3 outside the road.
Are the streets covered is my question.
Yeah, that slush. You know how these morons are. They go and you can't get no bread and milk, Jack.
Okay.
That like they're going to be snowed in for like weeks.
I bet it's all gone by tomorrow.
Yeah. Like them big tenors,
So, am I assuming there wasn't much work done today in Alabama?
No. I did elbow work up and down, up and down. Let me say something. Jeff from Columbus, Ohio, yesterday, Jack, you talking about Ohio State is the closest thing to the SEC. Let me tell you something. We're in a high-scale neighborhood, son. If we catch you low-rent district, Jack, up in our neighborhood, we'll call the dead burn neighborhood watch you run you out there with a stick. You don't belong with the SEC. You hear that, Big Ten, John? You hear me?
I hear you, Larry. Thanks for the call. Be safe with the snow. Buzz is up next in Amarillo. Amarillo by morning.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show. First-time caller.
Much.
Love your show. So how are you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Good. Say, I don't know. I got something on my mind, and I've sort of had it with how high-paid coaches are going now. $75 million to Jimbo, and the buyout with Bielema, $11.2 million. Why don't we start paying some of these college kids? Now, I know that's going to open up a Pandora's box, and it should. But, we could pay juniors and seniors, and we could classify it like the top 25 at the end of the year. I mean, all the money is going to the coaches. And, these kids, are out there playing their hearts off, and it's big-time business now. So, anyway, thank you.
Thanks for the call, Buzz. When you pay a coach $75 million, it's a major deal. I mean, that's people can do whatever they want, but that's how they got his attention. They said, we want you. And his agent goes, okay, what are you willing to pay? And I go, $75 million. They go, when can we start?
Be there tomorrow.
Be there tomorrow. Be there tonight if I can. Let's continue with more phone calls. And Mike in Virginia. Mike, go right ahead. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my calls.
Thank you.
The third time I've called into your show. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Hey, I'd like to talk about Jeremy Pruitt there at Tennessee and how I think he's going to succeed where Jones and Dooley didn't. Even though Tennessee can recruit itself basically because of the facilities and traditions, Dooley and Jones didn't come from a background of elite programs.
Hold on a second. Where do you think Derek Dooley came from?
Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, where do you think? Where was he before that?
Yeah, okay, but he wasn't the head coach. I mean, even though
he was the recruiting coordinator for Nick Saban at LSU. That's a pretty
that
outstanding program, if you ask me.
Well, still, I mean, Saban's time at LSU.
And by the way, one more thing about Derek. He only came from one of the greatest coaching families in SEC history.
But he was a lawyer before that. He didn't even.
Yeah, that was Derek Dooley's biggest problem. He should have stayed being a lawyer. He'd be a billionaire on Wall Street right now instead of coaching wherever he is. I think he's with the Cowboys.
Still with the Cowboys. But Pruitt, in his time, he's only been recruiting basically 4- and 5-star athletes there at Alabama, Florida State, Georgia.
That's true. No, absolutely.
In fact, Alabama. So he's used to going after that top talent where Jones and Dooley really wouldn't.
No, I mean, the bottom line is that Jones was a fish out of water. I mean, he was a cliche machine and nothing more.
And also, Pruitt's going to have all the extra facilities now. And
but I will say one thing: the difference between Jones and Pruitt, though, is Jones had been a head coach at two different places. That's the one thing about Jeremy Pruitt. You can say whatever you want. He has never been a head coach, and there is a learning curve. Now, you can say, well, not much of a learning curve for Kirby Smart. True. He's in the playoffs in his second year. Let's continue with more phone calls. You can take it any way you want. Let's go to Jennifer next up. Jennifer, go right ahead.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum.
How are you?
I'm good. First-time caller, long-time viewer.
Thank you.
Your show seems a little somber today. I don't know if it's the weather or the people or the end of the week or what, but anyway, my question is...
By the way, you're absolutely right about that.
It really is. I watched you a lot.
I think it's the weather.
Okay. We'll go with that. But my question is...
It's the realization that winter is here, I think, is what's ruining my day.
Right. Well, anyway, I've heard a lot about Preacher Pruitt going to Tennessee, but my question is, how do you, or if you think it will even affect Alabama at all?
Well, I think the only way it's going to affect Alabama is over the next 3 weeks, whether Alabama wins these 2 games or not, and Jeremy Pruitt is able to manage. Beyond that, I don't think it's going to have a significant effect. Do I think he'll recruit well there? Yeah. At some point, he'll take a player that maybe Alabama wanted, but that comes with the territory. Kirby Smart's done the same thing at Alabama, at Georgia against Alabama, but Nick Saban's not going to lose his edge in recruiting because he loses one of his best recruiters. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. Greg is up next. Greg, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. It's a good day to see Brams and John up there with your military headgear on, and as a retired submariner, I'm going to say go Navy, and I hope those guys play well, and if you ever have a chance to go to one of those
have a
games,
retired Army general on, so be careful.
that's all right. we you know, in the Navy,
we got you representing the Navy.
Submarine Force. There's a saying that there are boats which are submarines and targets, and every once in a while, the Russian embassy in D.C. would get a picture of the Kirov, which was their premier battle cruiser at the time, and it'd have a pair of crosshairs behind it, courtesy of the U.S. Submarine Force. But I think if you ever get a chance to go up to Philadelphia, you'll love it. I had a chance to go 30 years ago, and then or prior to that, I had a chance to see Napoleon McCallum, who was one of the biggest stars the Navy has had on the football field in the modern era. But it's a real good show to watch. And when you see these guys out there, you know, they're going to leave here and graduate and move on to a life that's full of being in harm's way, and some of them won't make it back from wherever they're going. And it's just nice to see these young athletes who are going to be warriors in the truest sense of the word perform for us before they go off on to places that we won't hear about and things that we won't get to see.
No, very well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Greg, thank you very, very much. Excellent comment there. Let's talk to Amy next. Amy, go right ahead.
Hi, Paul. I just love you to death.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really enjoy your show. Hey, I just want to comment about Philip Fulmer coming back to Tennessee as AD.
Of course.
The majority of us here are super happy about him coming back, and when we saw him, you know, announced as AD, I sat here and squalled like a baby. I was so happy. It was like, you know, being home again at Tennessee. And we're happy to welcome Jeremy Pruitt. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you think about who he's going to hire and bring in for offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and so forth?
You know, there are a lot of Amy. There are a lot of names out there right now, and I'm hesitant to start speculating. I have a reasonably decent idea of where he's going, but because all these coaches are elsewhere, I'm going to let him narrow the field down a little bit. But I think you'll hear some names very, very soon, and some of the names I'm hearing so far have been quite good. Let's continue. Thomas is in South Carolina, and you are next up. Go right ahead. Thomas, you there?
Oh, hey, Paul.
Hi there.
Appreciate you taking my call.
You bet.
I watched the Pruitt news conference the other day, and, you know, he just more or less an old-timer like me. He said there's a 200-foot rope, and there's a mud hole in the middle. And I
like
got
that.
this side, and everybody behind me, you're in good shape. The people on the other side, you're going to go through the mud. And he just laid it on the line. That was a great news conference. And, you know, you talk about a learning curve, but I notice these people that come from coaches who come from Alabama, the learning curve in these new jobs is real short for them. They know how to get in there and take hold. And I'm looking for great things. I'm right here at Clemson, so naturally I'm a Clemson fan unless they're playing South Carolina. You know, then I'm either way. But I've been a Tennessee fan ever since Peyton Manning. As a matter of fact, I quit watching NFL football when Peyton retired so much. And it's just one of those things, and the hire you got at Arkansas
right.
is from our school, so we're going to see how the Dabo Swinney tree is going to look here in a couple of years. I think it's going to look good. Fantastic coach, and that's a great organization. I tell you, the SEC, the coaches have switched around, buddy. Next year, by the end of next year, you know, they're going to be right back where they used to be. It's going to be tough to play any of them because, you know, good boat rises all the boats. And everything I see, what they've done this year, they've come out with the cream of the crop. And the schools, the hiring they've done, it just looks great. And, you know, that's good for everybody.
Yeah, it is. Hey, thank you.
ACC is great for ACC when Florida State come into it. They won everything for a few years, but
they sure did.
it laid the marker down. If you want to compete, pick your program up. And the same thing happened when Clemson put Dabo in. Paul, it doesn't matter. When you're at the head of something, you're going to have about 50 against you and 50 for you. And it was the same way. You hear all this stuff, but I noticed as it went along, these people was descending. Their airtime they got was less and less and less. And that was a good thing. And, Chad Morris, I think, is, a great hire. He's just hired one great defensive coordinator, and at Arkansas always got good talent. The SEC does up and down the board.
We have spent a lot of time talking about the Army-Navy game, and it gives us great pleasure to introduce someone I was introduced to about a year ago after he wrote a book. He is the retired Major General Vincent Boles. His book was 4321 Leadership. And, General, what a pleasure to have you on, especially on the eve of the Army-Navy game. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Paul, always a pleasure. Just great to be on your show, and I take great pleasure from watching your work.
Thank you. That means a great deal. I want to talk about a number of things. Let's start with the importance of this game. I know as an Army man and obviously a retired general, being one of the top officers in the service, describe to this audience, I mean, I don't want to over-exaggerate. There are more important things going on in the world, but how important was this game to you and your colleagues?
It was one of those things, I would call it a unifying moment. Wherever you were in the Army, wherever you were in the world, you knew on that Saturday in December, your service, Army, was on the line playing Navy. And likewise, I'm sure for the Navy and my Navy teammates I served with, it was a big deal for them. We'd be friends 364 days out of the year, but on the 365th day, it was a unifying thing for an entire service, and therefore it's why many of the nations, many of the folks, as you know, in the Southeast will turn to Auburn, Alabama, and that will be the hue and cry, or they'll turn up in the North to Ohio, Michigan. But Army-Navy is one of those transcendent moments, unifying moments when the nation turns and looks.
Now, I know as a retired general, you would deal with some of the most highest security clearances in the country, if not the world. But any side bets with your fellow officers from the Navy side?
How much money you got, Paul?
I've heard these stories.
This is going to be a magical year. You have, for the first time in first time since 1960-61, if I have it right, both teams have winning records. And they are both going to postseason games and bowl games, so it's kind of a big deal. Army has in both games, both teams are coached by Paul Johnson, apostles of his from his days at Navy, Munkin and Ken Niumatalolo. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how it all comes together. But I would keep my powder dry in terms of a bet.
Okay.
The only bet we want to win is we want to sing second.
I understand. Well, General, let me go back a little bit to your book, 4321 Leadership, and certainly it's available out there. But I do want to get your thoughts on that and your experiences and how you came up with this concept.
Well, I had redeployed back from Iraq in 2003, 2004, and the Army in 2004 sent me from my deployment to the training base. Because we had really come to the realization that training was going to be training kids. This wasn't going to be a fast where we're going to training kids for a fight. And many of the young men and women we were put through the training base had to go to this new kind of a conflict, this counterinsurgency fight. So they took many of us officers who had been in combat and put us in the training base to get them ready for that. And I thought, and I was the chief of what was called the Ordnance Corps, a very technical branch, ammunition, maintenance, logistics, bomb disposal. And I thought that I would spend all my time on getting them technically ready. I found technically ready wasn't the issue. The issues they wanted to talk about were leadership issues. How do I connect with my team? How do I keep my team connected under pressure of combat? How do I do that? And I talked to every class that came through. We had about 20,000 students a year. And I came up with the 4321, and I talked about the 4 expectations folks have of leaders. Establish structure, manage relationships, balance risk, and make decisions. I talked about the 3 critical questions every leader has to ask before they send people out to do something. You got to look yourself in the mirror and ask, what is the standard I want them to work it to? What is the system they have to do it with? And have I correctly identified who's in charge? And then the two I talk about are the 2 reasons for stress in organizations, and only 2 reasons for stress. And then the one critical thing I talk about is how do you manage that critical factor, which is the trust equation? How do you get people to forget about their own self-interest and trust you and your vision and what you want them to do? And I came up with that, and I began talking to students about that. It got pretty good reviews, and then a video of me doing a presentation got to the Washington Speakers Bureau in Alexandria, Virginia. And the next thing I know, I was getting ready to retire, and they gave me a call and said, would you go out to Laguna Beach, California, and speak to an audience about leading in a crisis? And I said, well, I think I can do that. And one thing led to another, and between being on the lecture circuit doing that, being a teacher and executive coach, and now the book, it's been quite a nice existence, but it is not the one I expected when I retired out of the Army. It was not what I planned.
Well, I want to ask you to relate this, because I've had some discussions with you off the air about what you have learned, obviously, in your many, many years of leadership in the service, to what we talk about so often here, and that's college football and coaching, and how those two are related and the two intersect.
I think the biggest relation is, unlike in college, for the young men and women that go off, those national treasures that go off in the dirt and the dark for us, they don't get to pick their missions. They get no vote in picking their missions. The only vote they get is how they get themselves ready to execute that mission. And that's the big deal that they do. I knew every soldier I was training, it was highly likely they would go into combat. And we would worry about, did we have them ready? Did we do every single possible thing we could do to have them ready? A football is a game. It's a competition. It's a game. I think probably the biggest thing to highlight in tomorrow's event and game is, remember, the individuals who are playing on the field tomorrow did not go to Army or Navy or Air Force to be football players. They went there to be officers in your Army, your Navy, and your Air Force. They are playing as a result of being, pretty good at it and wanting to do something, and each of the academies has a requirement that you participate in a sport of some kind. So they like to play football and they're good at it, but they didn't decide, well, I'm a great football player, I'm going to Army, I'm going to Annapolis, I'm going to Colorado Springs. They said, I want to serve my nation. And I think that's the biggest difference there, if that's helpful.
I also wanted to ask you about coaching, because coaching is I'm not trying to equate what a coach does to what an officer does in any of the services, but it is such a perhaps misunderstood role, and there's so much controversy about it, and it's often very difficult to find the right person. Your thoughts on coaching and what makes a coach successful?
And obviously, we thought about that. There's a couple of things. First, a coach has to be to be a coach, you have to do 2 things. First, you have to have competence in your craft, and if you're in the service, you have to have competence in your craft. You have to know your business, because they're going to turn to you when you tell them to do something. They want to know that you know what you're talking about. At the same time, you have to have a relationship so that you're not the leader, the commander, the coach. They want you to be their leader, their commander, their coach. They want to run into you and they want to say, that's my commander, that's my coach. I feel a connection. And to do that, you have to understand the difference between management and leadership. Management is a task list and a clipboard. It's stuff you got to do. It's directive. You tell people to do things. Leadership is connective. How do you connect with folks so that they want to stay an extra 20 minutes and do up-downs on their own? They want to run those sprints. They want to run 24 toss-power trap until they get it right exactly. They will stay and work on a project in the Pentagon because they heard my boss talking to me about it. They'll volunteer for that next mission. They're not going to do that because you manage them to do that. They're going to do that because you lead them to do that, and you form that connection. And great coaches or commanders or leaders understand it's that combination of competence and relationships that really becomes key.
As we close, it may be worth noting Mike Krzyzewski, arguably the greatest basketball coach since John Wooden and one of the greatest coaches ever, the fact that he not only coached but had such a strong connection to West Point.
Very much so. Played for Bobby Knight. and then was an assistant for Army Natural Law, and then stayed at the academy and coached, and then from there went to Duke. And even there, it still came through. I still remember Krzyzewski's one of the most recent books Feinstein wrote about Valvano, Dean Smith, and Mike Krzyzewski. He talked about the fact that Duke was playing Navy, and Krzyzewski walked into the locker room, and before the game, rather than have a long dissertation about what they were going to do, he just looked at every player with his West Point ring on, and he said, I don't lose to Navy. You're not going to lose to Navy. If you're going to lose to Navy, don't come home. And then, the rest was history. Duke said, well, we don't know how we're going to. And that was when Navy had David Robinson and a couple of pretty daunting people. It was pretty early in his tenure.
An amazing story. General, we've wanted to do this for a long time. Look forward to the game tomorrow. Look forward to having you back. Best wishes, and thank you so much for making the time.
Paul, thanks so very much. Just make sure people understand those young men and women go for us. They believe we're worth it. And tomorrow's a great day to dedicate ourselves to being the type of citizens worthy of their sacrifice. They just want us to be the type of citizens they can be proud of. And thanks so very much for the opportunity, and God love you and take care.
Lee is in Gastonia, North Carolina, which getting some snow right now.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing?
We're doing great. How are you?
Good. Home of James Worthy and Sleepy Floyd.
You bet.
I was just going to ask you two questions. One, which new head coach is walking into the best situation in the SEC?
Okay, so let's narrow that down. We have Arkansas, Tennessee, A&M, Matt Luke, and Moorhead.
I don't really count Matt Luke.
Okay.
Because he coached this year. So.
I'm not sure Moorhead at Mississippi State isn't walking into the best situation.
Because he's got a stud at quarterback.
He's got a great quarterback. A&M is decent, and they have their players, but I would go with Moorhead at Mississippi State.
Okay, and then one last question. It seemed to me during the BCS era that the conferences were punished for not having a conference game, and I know this is funny. My priest and I were talking about Wisconsin and Ohio State, but what if Wisconsin had said, you know what, we're not going to play. We're undefeated, and we're not going to play Ohio State. What if I know if they had balked from that game, what would have happened?
Yeah, I think the committee would have ignored them because they would have been, they would have violated, I think, the policies of that league. So it wouldn't have worked.
Do you think?
And also, I think the Big Ten would have sued the schools for millions of dollars, considering they have a television contract to deliver a championship game.
Do you think some conferences are going to drop their championship games based off what happened?
No, not at all. I mean, they're worth too much money.
Yeah, and it is money.
I was in Atlanta last weekend. That town was pretty lit up for a big time game.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Have a good weekend and happy holidays.
You be safe over there in Gastonia, North Carolina. Let's go to Bob in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Good day, Paul.
Good day,
mate.
How
are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Great. I have two observations for you. I have time to take them.
Sure.
One is I think that Phil Fulmer has done a great job hiring a coach. And looking, hindsight is always great, but looking back, I really believe when Fulmer kind of faltered on recruiting, Tennessee would have been a lot better to name him athletic director and let him hire a coach with a little more energy.
Take it from me, just being ready will only get you so far. To get to the next level, you need to be the readiest, because Ready shows up on game day. Readiest shows them how it's done. And being the readiest starts with a great night's sleep and a free hearty breakfast at Holiday Inn Express. So the next time you hit the road for a game, stay at Holiday Inn Express, a proud sponsor of SEC football. Holiday Inn Express, be the readiest. We're having a good time on a snowy Friday afternoon. We will continue with your phone calls at 855-242-7285. And Rick in Alabama is up next. How are you, Rick?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Good, good. Hey, I was just calling in reference of Jeremy Pruitt. As you know, I live right here in Hoover, Alabama. Hoover High School's at our back door. All three of my kids went there. In fact, they were there in the two-a-days when MTV was there. And
congratulations, you guys won the title Thursday night.
Absolutely. Well, I think it was Wednesday night, wasn't it?
Wednesday night, whatever night it was. Yeah, you're right. Today's Friday. It was 2 days ago.
Yeah, won it soundly at 48-20 against an undefeated team. And so my question was this. I haven't heard. I listen to you every day. You've got a great show.
Thank you.
And I know Jeremy. I've run into him, said hello to him. He doesn't know me. I don't know him personally. But he was hired, as you know, directly out of Hoover High School as, I think, a players personnel department director or something. Yeah, something like that. But I'm wondering, what about the coach that's been there now? He just won, I think, his 8th state championship title.
Josh Niblett?
Yeah, Josh Niblett. Would you even think Nick Saban might think about pulling him back? He played defensive back at Alabama.
Yeah, let me say this about Josh Niblett. I'm trying to remember where he was before Hoover. He was somewhere in...
I think Opelika.
Yeah. Maybe, I can't remember. Maybe in East Alabama somewhere. But anyway, the bottom line is, I mean, this guy is one of the greatest high school coaches of all time. I don't know whether he would really want to leave at this point. I mean, what people don't understand is that Hoover High School is a university. It looks like one. It acts like one. And the job there, I mean, Rush Probst, of course, was Jeremy Pruitt's boss at Hoover.
Right.
And Niblett. I mean, many wondered if anyone could replace Rush Probst, but Niblett has not only replaced him, but he's exceeded his accomplishment. And by the way, he is also just one of the finest coaches in terms of people I've ever met.
He is. He is a great Christian man. And by the way, I see him in a place. We get our haircut at the same place. I see him about once every 3 months, and he doesn't know me personally if I walked in his door, but everybody knows him just like everybody knows Nick Saban if he walked in your door. And I'll just say, hey, Coach, you had a good game last night. And he'll say, thanks to God, everything went great. And I even asked him one time, we were getting our haircut, I said, has Alabama contacted you or any other Division I school about being an offensive defense coordinator? He said no. At this point, no. And I said, if they did, would you take it? And he just kind of looked at me and said, well, I would certainly listen to a phone call. And so, I'm thinking if Jeremy Pruitt can go and get to where he is now at Tennessee, I'm certainly think Josh Niblett could do the same thing.
Yeah. By the way, I think he may have been at Oxford High School before he went to Hoover, but I could be wrong about that. Oxford, which of
I
course
think you're right. But think about his recruiting
which
abilities.
Is really toward Atlanta from Birmingham in East Alabama.
Right.
Pretty good tradition up there too.
But what about his recruiting abilities?
I don't know how to answer that because I just think on one level, yeah. I mean, if you go to Alabama, they could lead to what Jeremy Pruitt has led to. But what some people don't understand, and this is Gus Malzahn went through this. Being a high school coach at a place like Hoover or Springdale High School in Arkansas, I mean, you're about as big as it gets. I mean,
Bill Clark came from a high school
Bill
also
Clark
now
was
at
in
UAB.
Prattville, Alabama. You're absolutely right, and it happens. There's no reason why it can't. Chad Morris was a high school coach in Texas. Maybe years ago, but the difference between where Chad was, Southlake and Dallas, Prattville to college football to Hoover, there is not much of a difference between what these guys do and what happens on a college campus.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm pretty sure he would be an excellent replacement there. Maybe have a little bit to learn or start out where Jeremy did when he first went to Alabama.
Might have to take a pay cut.
I know he makes over six figures. I can say that.
Yeah, I mean the Hoover. I mean, if you coach at someplace like that, I mean, you got your own TV show, you got your radio show, you do endorsements. I mean, there's a lot that. Of course, Jeremy Pruitt was making close to $2 million a year at Alabama, so I doubt high school coaches pay that.
No.
If they do, I'd like one of those jobs.
I was just curious your thoughts on that.
No,
he has a 7-on-7 tournament there every single summer when there's like 45 high schools come in, and every one of those kids know his name.
No, I actually know that, but every year the SEC Media Days, just for the sake of argument, Rick, ends on Thursday. Because our show goes late, we ended up staying overnight in Hoover. Now next year it won't be there, but so the Thursday night I'm going up to the room, and every high school, I'm on an elevator with every one of these star high school players that come in for that 7-on-7. So I'm very familiar with what happens there in late July. It is a mecca of high school football. Gary in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Can throw a rock and hit Rock Hill from here.
Hey, Paul.
Hey there.
How you doing?
We are doing great, thank you.
Good. First-time caller. Just wanted to talk to you about the Coach of the Year in the SEC. I think that everybody's kind of got Kirby Smart penciled in. Just want to say that I think he's done a fantastic job, but he went into a cupboard that was pretty full. And my boy at South Carolina, Mr. Will Muschamp, has taken a team that was won 3 games 2 years ago, won 6 games last year, and won 8 this year, and has done it with 70% of the team being sophomores and freshmen. And I think he has done a fantastic job and should be Coach of the Year in the SEC.
Well, listen, it's hard to argue with your information there.
Yeah, like I said, he came in, and of course he doesn't have any 5-star players. Kirby came into us. I heard Steve talking the other day about when he came to Florida, and he was talking about what good players he had when he came in down there, and that helped him, of course, to win the national championship. Kirby's done a good job with the players that he's got, but I think Will Muschamp has done a fantastic job.
He has. 2 weeks ago, when was it? 2 weeks ago, we were in South Carolina and had a chance to sit down with Will, and he's a great football coach. I'm glad to see him make a comeback after that Florida experience, and he has done quite well, and the fans of South Carolina love him. Thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Let's continue here, and Darian in Tennessee is up next. Good afternoon. Darian, you there?
Hey, what's going on, Paul?
We are doing great. What about you?
Hey, man, what's up? Now, actually, I'm in D.C. I'm in Washington, D.C.,
okay.
But I am from Orange Mound, Memphis, and I went to your
Melrose High School, right?
That's Melrose is in Orange Mound,
Sure,
but I went to White Station, your alma mater.
Yeah, as you know, I grew up in Memphis, and Orange Mound was where basketball players roamed, and the best basketball players in Memphis came from that area.
Yeah. But I went to White Station, your alma mater. You went to White Station, right?
Yeah, I finished there. I sure did.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, you finished at White Station. Let me jump right in and say this because I didn't get a chance to talk when Tennessee was just at the bottom of the barrel last year and this year. But I'm so glad that Butch Jones is gone. And the reason I'm serious because I'm a diehard Vols fan, and watching him coach the Alabama game last year, I'm not going to even talk about this year. Last year, and I know you'll remember this because Joshua Dobbs did not run the ball one time against Alabama. And I said to myself then that this man has to go because when you're playing a team like Alabama, you got to use all your weapons. And that game right there just stood out, even though, of course, we got blown out. I think that was in Alabama. But his coaching was...
The game, where was that game? The game last year was at Neyland Stadium.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. It was, exactly. It was at Neyland Stadium. And for him to not be able to coach, to coach that kid for us to have a chance to win. I think Jalen Hurts had like 3 touchdowns, and he had like 98 or 120-some yards rushing. And I said to myself, well, if Nick Saban can use his quarterback, why can't we use ours? But that was just one thing that just was just the tip of the barrel, plus with all of these sexual allegations with these football players. And I said he can't have a handle. He doesn't have a handle on the team, outside the football field. And I think hopefully Jeremy Pruitt, I was actually kind of hoping maybe they would look at Tucker from or is it Rucker or Tucker from Georgia?
Yeah, Mel Tucker. They did
Yeah,
talk
Mel
to him. I
Tucker.
think he was a finalist for the job.
Okay, yeah, and I was kind of hoping they were going to go that way, but I kind of like the from what I see and from what I hear from Pruitt, and he's young, and he seems to be a person that can get, like they say, if you can't beat him, you gotta pull away from him. You gotta pull the people away from him to beat him.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, so and peace. A shout out to the Memphis State football team.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Definitely an exciting time to be a Memphis Tiger, and so humbled and grateful for the opportunity that our administration, our athletic director Tom Bowen, our president, the board of trustees, just the commitment that they've made to myself, our staff, and the continued progression of our program it's incredible. And everybody's excited. The community has definitely rallied behind us in the way that we've played and the way that we've represented each and every Memphian. And now to be able to celebrate that by playing in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl is going to be a wonderful experience to wrap up our season.
Coach Norvell, a lot of people, I'll throw myself in that group, assumed you would go somewhere else. That's what we're conditioned to assume with young coaches who are doing well, because there are so many opportunities out there. And I realize some of this is confidential, but talk a little bit about the struggle to go elsewhere versus staying where you are right now.
Obviously, anytime that there's interest from other programs or from just the overall people talking about our program nationally, it is a great compliment to what we've done. And this program being able to come into Memphis in our first 2 years and sustain the success and also continue to elevate to where we're going has been a great experience. And I truly believe that a lot of that success is attributed to how well of a fit that Memphis has been for me, our coaching staff, the way that it's embraced everybody within our program, and it really is a great time to see our program continue to progress and continue to play at a high level. So I think it like I said, it was a compliment that that there were other programs that did have interest in our staff and what we're doing, but I think we've got a great thing here. We've been able to recruit at extremely high level. We've got a great group of young players that I think are going to continue to develop, and like I said, it's a wonderful fit for me and my family, and we're excited about the opportunity to continue that.
I want you to discuss that a little bit, because I think sometimes, Coach, from a distance, whether it's fans or media, just assume at a place like Memphis you're going to go somewhere else. But you have helped to change the culture there, that this is now a big-time program in a football market that plays at an extremely high level. What is the challenge, though, of continuing to convince people and keep that culture where not only where it is, but to grow it?
It's a daily process, and it's something that when we came in 2 years ago, every person on our staff, we pour our hearts into this program, trying to continue to elevate where we're going. Like I said, the young men that we have have done a great job in buying into that culture, and it becomes contagious. It becomes contagious around our university. It's contagious around our community. You see the support that we've had. With our home games, being able to the championship game that we played in, last week. I mean, even though we came up a play short, I thought we represented our community at an extremely high level. And we stepped off that plane back in Memphis, and there were hundreds upon hundreds of fans lining the airport fences, just cheering us on and celebrating what this team has done. And that's it means something personally to every person that's a part of our program, and we take great joy in that, and I want to see this program continue to grow, but by the administration and everybody involved with making the commitment financially and enhancing our facilities. The grass isn't always greener in bigger conferences or in different places. It's the same thing that we talk to recruits about. You have to find the place that's the best fit for you. And right now, University of Memphis is a wonderful fit for everybody that's a part of our staff and the players that we have. And we feel like there's still a lot of work that's left to be done to take it to the highest level and continue with our progression.
Coach, this program beat Ole Miss a couple of years ago. It obviously it beat UCLA earlier this year in a nationally televised game on ABC. You've got Iowa State. You'll go to Missouri next year. What is the challenge, though, of scheduling major opponents? Because, quite frankly, nobody wants to play Memphis anymore.
Well, for us, it's great to be in those showcase games, and we know the responsibility that we have, that when we get those opportunities, you have to play well. And when we played UCLA this year, a lot of people wanted me to come out and say it's just another game, but it's really not. I mean, you have when you're in the national spotlight, when you're playing a well-known brand, and you have an opportunity to go out there and compete at a high level, it shows you that you belong. And our kids, they take a great deal of pride in that. That was a major win for us. UCLA was ranked in the top 25 at the time, was coming off a big win versus Texas A&M, and so that kind of gave us a spark there early in the season. You talk about the Ole Miss win a few years ago, but anytime that you have a chance to showcase your program, especially when you're not a part of the quote unquote Power Five, you need to make sure that you show the country that you do belong to be talked about as one of those top programs that that are competing in the country.
Alison, Franklin, Tennessee. Good afternoon, Alison. It's been too long. How are you?
It has been too long. Oh, I'm great. How are you doing?
We are doing fantastic.
Well, good. Well, it's so great to speak with you. I've been a little busy, but I always watch, and I wanted to call in for several reasons. One of them is I wanted to thank you and the crew for the ridiculous schedule that you guys kept all fall. I can't even believe it. It makes me tired to think of. It's like you'd never had a day off.
Well, I've had the time of my life.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's just
a song, "The Times of My Life."
It is. Is it? Well, it might be tomorrow if it's not already.
Listen, it has been the most interesting fall of my career, which is encompassing a lot of time. But I'll tell you what, Alison, it's something that I wanted to do, and it's reached its conclusion, at least for this part of the season. But I had a blast. I mean, it was I was on the move. I went a lot of places every weekend, but I wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
Well, it's so enjoyable for somebody like me. I work a lot, but you guys were kind of always there, and every day, and then the weekends, and it just meant so much to me, even though I wasn't calling in as often as I wish.
So I guess my question to you is, what have you been doing?
Well, I started a new law firm.
Right, I remember you told me that when I saw you last. Right,
and I moving into a new office this week and next. I've been writing a lot of songs, oddly.
Really?
You know what happened? For some reason, after Tom Petty died, which was, I guess, early October.
Yeah, it was late September, early October.
Yeah, I found myself, getting my morning coffee super early, like, 5 in the morning, and grabbing a guitar and just kind of seeing what happened.
Man,
and I kind of got on a roll. So I've been really enjoying that.
I'm going to do that in my next career. I'm going to be a songwriter.
Well, I think you already are.
Well, but that was a one and done. But I my fascination with songwriting.
I do, and for me, I really didn't. All these years of playing music, I never really wrote songs. But for whatever reason, lately it's just it's been.
It's crazy, Alison. I shouldn't be saying this, but because I've spent in one day of my life actually writing your songs. For those who don't know the story, Alison knows I hooked up with a very famous songwriter, and because I'd always wanted to do it. But the crazy thing is I actually think I can do it.
You can do it.
I did it one time, and it was so much fun. And I but I'm not sure how I do it right now. But maybe you can hook me up with the right. I did it with Walt Aldridge, who is just an incredible songwriter, as you know.
Oh, he is.
And,
I think it's one of those things where the only thing that would keep you from doing it was to think you can't do it. If you go in with the innocence of it.
The thing is, I don't know much. I really don't know. I don't have any musical skill, but I just love the concept of putting things. Looking up, I sound like Jim McElwain now, but looking up in the sky, it didn't work for him, but it's going to work for me.
Well, you're such a great writer for all these years. In this taking all that and trying to make it concise, which is one of the fun things to me about
they're
it.
giving us a hard
not
time
saying
in the
you're
other
not
room.
concise.
They're saying we just Hayes is just coming after me in my ear here.
I bet he is.
Hey, Hayes, I haven't seen Alison since like the third or fourth weekend of the season when we were in Nashville together. So you calm down there,
right.
okay?
We love Alison in the control room. We're just fooling around. You guys catch up.
Friday afternoon, some old friends just chatting. What's wrong with that?
That's right. The other thing is, I wanted to say how much I've enjoyed Rich's calls this week.
Rich is all over it.
Man, he brought it this week. Seriously, there are several people that no matter what I'm doing, if I'm working and I always have you on, I will get up from where I am to go listen to Rich and Larry and Bobby and Phyllis. I hadn't heard much from her lately, but she always gets me up from my chair. And I love Millie too, but those. They're just automatically I get up. I love those people.
Well, Alison, great. I mean, if I talk to you any longer, John's just going to fire me from the show.
Well, John, he needs to settle down.
Would you talk to John as an adult, Alison, and tell him that sometimes friends do like to catch up?
Well, that's right. And hey, we're here at the 11th hour of the show. It's all right.
Yeah.
I'm just jealous. I went to Alison's show in Nashville a couple of years ago. She rocked and. Of course. I'm just jealous.
Alison is a great musician, by the way.
There's no doubt about that.
Well, thanks. Well, you have to come back to another show. We've gotten a lot better even since then. So,
Alison, I see did I tell you what I did in Nashville a couple of months ago?
What? I don't think so.
Okay, John's going to hate me for this. So, so I'm in Nashville for it was the week of the Alabama-Tennessee game.
Uh-huh.
I was up there for 2 days covering the basketball media days. And a couple weeks earlier, I'm on a plane with some guy, a guy named Joe, and we started talking. So I run into him in the lobby. I can't remember the hotel. It's right across the street from Bridgestone and all that. So we started talking, and I said, "What are you doing in town?" He lives in California. He said, "I'm here for the. You're going to have to help me with this. It's the CMT Entertainer of the Year Award."
Maybe it is, or CMA.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Yeah. So he said, I didn't realize you were a country music fan. I said, yeah, sure. He said, well, there's the event's tonight. I said, tonight? He said, so anyway, I get off the show. We go over there. I can't remember. It's a symphony hall.
Yeah, Skirmerhorn, probably.
Yeah. I couldn't even pronounce the name. And next thing you know, he said, we walk in, and we walk in this red carpet, and there's Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, and all of a sudden Luke Bryan walks over to me. He said, "How you doing?" I mean, like, how do you know me, Luke Bryan?
It's easy.
And
I'm sure he watches you.
It is a 90-minute live show on CMT, and there's only about 150 people there. And it was just so cool to see this little big town open the show. And I got to know them. I don't know how much you know. I don't know if you know them or not, but
I don't think so. I know who they are.
The dark-haired couple are from Alabama. They're big Alabama fans.
Mm-hmm.
I met them last year at the championship game.
Oh, cool.
And Chris Stapleton played. And,
yeah. He used to play with Chris when Chris was brand new to town.
Right. Luke played Jason Aldean. It was his first appearance since the tragedy in life. But it was just like, and I met Bobby Bones. I don't know if you know Bobby.
Oh, I don't know him, but I like him.
So Bobby's been on so I'm walking over during a break, and he like jumps out of his chair because he's an Arkansas Razorback. So anyway, this whole SEC thing started happening right during the commercial breaks at the CMT Entertainer of the Year Award. But it was really, I must admit this, and I'll shut up. I've never been much of a Keith Urban fan,
but
watching him play the guitar was awe-inspiring.
Oh, man, he's cool. I got to do one thing with him a few years ago. I think it might have been that same show several years ago.
But I mean, I'm like going, this guy. I get he's a great entertainer, and I get he's married to Nicole Kidman. But man, can he play that guitar?
He really can. And I think you probably underestimate because on the SEC network, you guys everybody's a fan of some college team down here, just about. So everybody knows you. I would imagine.
Who's the guy? Philip Phillips? Is that an entertainer?
Philip Phillips. I don't know.
Oh, he won American. Well, anyway, his manager comes. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm running into all these SEC fans. Alison, thanks for the time. John is going to kill me. Appreciate it. Feel like I'm hosting CMT tonight. Let's go to Keith in Florida. Good afternoon, Keith.
Good afternoon, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great.
Hey, first-time caller, long-time listener. I did want to talk to you about this Tennessee hire with Jeremy Pruitt. I'm real excited about this. I think it's great for our program, great for our culture. With that being said, I remember the press conference with our AD, and he wanted to bring in a coach, that understood the culture, a coach of integrity. And I think he's done that. My issue is maybe some of these coaches that he's hired, particularly the OC and the DC coaches. I don't know that Kevin Scherer would have been my choice. I think I would have pushed for Kevin Steele or Mel Tucker. And then, my other issue is, Tyson Helton. You go after USC quarterback coach Tyson Helton. What does that say to T. Martin? It kind of seems like a slap in the face. I guess I want to just hear your insight on it. I don't know if it's, how you feel about that, or if maybe it's just stacking the deck for the future, getting some of Martin's staffers in there for a future introduction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
and I'll leave it at that. Thank you,
I still don't quite get the exactly what happened with T. Martin. I will not. I heard a theory on that a week or two ago that I'm not sure I'm comfortable sharing. And by the way, nothing. It's just it's something very petty. Nothing that anyone would be really overly concerned by. But I just don't know. There's some disconnect between T. Martin and the university. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Let's go to Harrison up next. Harrison, good afternoon to you.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great.
Hey, yes. I would just I know the Rose Bowl coming up and everything. Everybody's talking about Baker Mayfield and how are Georgia going to draw up something to stop him. Well, I got three things for you. Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter, and Roquan Smith. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, that if Georgia wins the game, you've just identified some of the reasons why.
Yes, sir. And I also read the other day where 70% of the earth is covered by water and the rest is covered by Roquan Smith.
And don't forget, water is wet.
That's right. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to have.
I did see that, but that's hilarious. I was just reading an article about how Clemson is.
I don't want to hear all that foolishness, Finebaum. I don't want to hear all that foolishness.
How did you know I was going to you? How did you know I was going to you, Jerome?
Finebaum, I know that you. Hey, listen, these Georgia fans, they just got the big head, ain't they, Paul? I don't know what they don't want the SEC championship. They won because by default. And that's the bottom line.
They didn't by default. They beat a team you didn't beat.
I don't give a crap because we ain't played them yet. That's why.
No. They beat Auburn. You didn't beat Auburn.
I don't give a crap, Finebaum. Where Auburn at now? Where they at now? Pushing up peaches. That's what they at. Now, listen, Finebaum. Rich must have had something to drink earlier today when he was talking about you were going somewhere. Now, what's all this? Now, surely you ain't talking about no damn being no country music star, Paul. Huh? Surely you not finna let this. Listen to me, Fireball. Listen to me, Paul. Surely you not finna let all this mess you keep stirred up every day for 4 hours go to sit on some statement. And Paul, by the way, I can't picture you in no damn cowboy boots, Fireball.
Can you imagine me coming out on stage with the sequins and the hat and the boots? Got to wear the boots, don't you? I mean, you can't go to Nashville without getting a big old pair of boots.
Paul, I'm gonna say two things, Finebaum. Jesus Christ, and have you lost your damn mind, Paul? Really? Country music, Finebaum. I can't see you sitting on stage.
What's the old Alan Jackson song? Gone Country. Look at them boots.
Yeah, I don't know about no damn ass. Hey, listen, Paul.
Back in my roots.
I don't know about no ass. Who you say? What you say?
Hey, Jerome, do you know where I'm from? I mean, I'm from Tennessee, man.
Man, you from damn New York somewhere, Finebaum. You ain't got no damn.
Hey, no. I am not from New York.
Well, Paul, you from New York.
My mother's from New York. My father's from New York. My sister's from New York. I'm from Tennessee.
Oh, well, who you raising your voice at, Finebaum?
Because I don't want anybody to think I'm from New York City. When I was born in Memphis, Tennessee.
You shouldn't stand up talking about you from Tennessee.
Because I'm a Southerner, born and bred.
Look, they done took Gavin Pruitt. What that mean, Finebaum?
I'll be Southern dead.
Hey, look. Hey, give me an opportunity to talk, Paul. Listen, they done took Gavin Pruitt. What that mean?
You're just upset because you lost your defensive coordinator.
Oh, Finebaum, if that's the case, I'm
decided
upset every damn
he would
day.
rather be the head coach in Tennessee than a coordinator at Roll Tide University.
Well, guess what? We still really gonna whoop their ass every year, Finebaum, so it don't matter. They ain't fixing no issue, Finebaum.
Hey, Jerome, before you worry about Tennessee, do me a favor.
I ain't worried about no
Clemson.
Clemson.
The team that should have beaten you 2 years in a row. That's Clemson.
Hey, you know what, Paul? You just a typical commentator. You gotta find something to damn point out and pick and choose, right? We won and won against Clemson.
I was at the stadium last year, and
I don't give a crap.
I walked out with just Deshaun Watson wearing the ring, not Jalen Hurts.
You ain't right about that. And listen to me. Nicky better bring a ring home this year. He better stop at Walmart and get one. He better come home with something. You hear me? He better not leave Atlanta this year without no damn ring or trophy, Finebaum. And by the way, roll down Tide.
Welcome back. Final few minutes. Let's roll to the calls. And Bob is in Tennessee. Hello, Bob. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
With the struggles that Jalen Hurts has had on third down in some of these big games, at what point would you think about putting Tua in just as a change of pace?
It's a great idea. I mean, I think you have to see how the tone and tenor of the game goes, but you can't afford to have the same issues that you had against Auburn and you had against Clemson last year. I mean, that third down efficiency is just terrible in those big games.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at
Florida
the
State
film, Tua brings an energy with his passing game that Jalen just seems to lack.
I mean, listen, you're talking about the national semifinals. You have to empty out the playbook, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very, very much. Good to hear from you. Let's continue with more calls. And Ray is up next. Ray, thanks. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. I wanted to call you and ask you if you knew about Jim Harbaugh taking a private jet to Mississippi and poaching their players. What your thoughts on that were?
I heard about that. That is one of the risks that occur when you have the issues that Ole Miss has had. Now, I can't believe that he's going to get away with it, but I know he's after Shea Patterson and some other players, right?
Yeah, and he's an underclassman, so I don't know how he's going to get out of it.
I think there has to. I mean, obviously there's a waiver there. Yeah, I'm not sure I completely I know this is a big issue, and we haven't really, because of the Tennessee and Arkansas searches, probably haven't dealt with it enough. But I think that's a great topic for next week, is to try to figure out exactly what's going on there.
And plus, what are the Michigan players going to think? Him going down there and doing that, bringing them up here,
I'm sure by now they probably have very little opinion of Harbaugh anyway.
Oh.
since they know him well.
Okay, Paul, thank you.
couldn't resist a Friday night shot at Jim Harbaugh, could you?
Would be a Friday with that.
Yeah, well, exactly. David is up next. David, thank you. Good afternoon.
Yes, Paul, first-time caller.
Thank you.
One of your previous callers answered my question about Pruitt and his coordinators. But I would like to know on Tennessee's, obviously their talent pool is low.
Yes.
And what would the thoughts on looking strongly at junior college players for some maturity And another question would be your opinion on Mayfield. As good as he's played and as good as his numbers are for the Heisman, his on-field immature actions and just overall acting is just immaturity.
Yeah, on JC's, I mean, I think if it's the right one, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't want to load your rosters up, although some coaches have. As far as Mayfield, I think he's getting away with it. He'll be glorified tomorrow like he's never done anything wrong. I think he's been petulant at times this year. I think he's shown terrible immaturity. I watched the video of him running away from the police, and I was frankly horrified at how little composure he had. Well, I mean, you're running away from the police, so it's not going to be a good look. But I think the media will completely whitewash that tomorrow, and he'll be celebrated as a great player, which he is. But I'm not impressed with his personal demeanor at all. Hey, thanks for the call. We're up against the end of the show. The podcast is available on the app, in the Apple Podcast